Hello and welcome to episode 176 of the Imperial Truth podcast. I'm Greg. Joining me as ever is Mr. Howard. Hello, Howard.
Hello, Greg. How are you doing? All right?
Yeah, grand. Yourself?
Very good. Still debating whether to say Happy New Year to every single person I run into, or whether that's past or whatever. But but pretty good after an up and down kind of Christmas. How are you doing? All right?
Yeah, same. Yeah,
Same. Yeah. Okay.
yeah. Up and down. It was all right. Little one's too young to get it. Took to the fourth day of opening his presents because he wasn't interested. For him to realise, like when you say to him, James, do you want to open a present? He'd go, nope. And then
Quite.
fourth
Yeah.
day, he said, do you want to open a present? And you could kind of think, there might be something I want in there. He suddenly started to click that there might be cool stuff in there. Bless him. So it took
Similarly,
a long time.
yes, someone who wasn't the little man not being entirely focused in, but what I did, it was full of energy. So spending Christmas with both my wife and I feeling pretty under the weather, pretty sick with different things, and trying to stop him throwing himself off stuff or running into stuff
Yeah.
or otherwise, and then managing that with family just brought a whole new dimension to Christmas, which I hadn't should have entirely understood and expected, but didn't
Next year's going
apparently.
to be manic. He'll be not quite 3, but he will be understanding it to a point. He'll know they're for him. So yeah, he's a bright lad, so he'll be well on his
That
way to
said, what was a surprise to us, his grandparents bought him a Duplo model train. So turns out I'm now a model train enthusiast, as I immediately had to buy the 2 expansion packs to go with it. He wasn't terribly interested. Little man wasn't terribly interested. He was like, "Yeah, all right." However, this guy,
we're guiding him to Bluey. Bluey soundtrack came on the other day, and he was like, "Bingo!" Yeah, so he won't sit and watch it yet, which is really annoying because I do want to sit and watch it because it's amazing. But we get to Bluey it soon. Like we have to get him off Bing first, but it's all good. Kids, eh?
So this is really golden heresy content here. We're
Well,
talking.
I think it's relevant. It's all relevant.
This
Anyway,
is true.
I was gonna, let's move on. Element Games. For all your plastic crack, go and buy your old world box set. Go and buy all
Oh my
your
goodness, yes.
Bretonians and Tomb Kings and movement trays and whatever else they're bringing out. Plus, go and buy all your heresy needs for your new year, new army.
If I'm not mistaken, Element do a nifty range of their own brand movement trays, if I'm not mistaken, which could come in very handy in the coming weeks.
Yeah. Yes. Well, there'll be talk about that. I'm sure at some point there might have to be like a side pod about the old world, or you can go and check out Mighty Empires, which is on YouTube and your local podcatcher. Only 2 episodes in because I got seriously ill after recording the first one. So yeah, there'll be more episodes of that to come. We tried to record one the other day and it never happened. So we'll have one of them out soon. But yes, Element for all your gaming needs. New hobby ranges, they'll have all the speed paint too. The new Fanatic, is it? Army Painter Fanatic?
Spot on, yeah. A lot of talk about Fanatic. I'm intrigued to try those out.
Can I just say as well, Army Painter, Kat from Cat and Caleb has been working with them for a while. And they announced on was it on? Might be on the independent characters. One of the Army Painter guys, yes, I think it was. It was the guy who had a 40k podcast who works with them now, Adam. He announced that Caleb's working for them a bit earlier than Caleb was aware that was going to be announced. I messaged him. I was like, "Wow!" He's like, "How did you find out?" So Kat and Caleb both working for Army Paint now, so that's pretty cool.
Whole new. It's quite a massive release for them because that's essentially re-releasing, if you like, or releasing a new edition of their core acrylic paint range.
I've only heard good things, to be fair.
I have. I really like the 6, because there's a few paint ranges. I've looked at the triads where you have 3 colors, a base, or rather a shade, a mid-tone, and a highlight. This time they've gone for a 6 color system, so sort of darkest to lightest. I think that's quite a cool way of doing it,
Yeah.
because you can then shift your 3 colors up and down light or dark spectrum, which I think is quite cool within a
Yeah,
specific color.
or blend
Mm,
in more stages.
absolutely.
But
Mm.
yeah, cool. Also, I went to Nottingham for a few days after Christmas. Never travel on the 27th of December. Why did I do that? It wasn't until like, I was like, this is going to be honest, had we left about 2 hours earlier, might have been all right. Took us 6 hours plus a stop
Oh,
to get there.
oof.
It was fun, but we did walk around. We were right in the centre of Nottingham, and on the 28th, we did wander into Element Games in Nottingham.
That's your first time in there, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, have you been in there?
I have.
The Nottingham one.
Mm.
I didn't expect. It wasn't what it wasn't what I was expecting.
Oh, interesting. Why is that?
So we got in there about 20 minutes after it opened. We went and had breakfast, then went in there, and yeah, there wasn't much space.
It
That
is.
is a
It's
tight
essentially
store.
it's a corridor of a store,
Yeah, I
very long, very thin.
and I kind of wandered in and thought sometimes they got stock in here that it's not online. Like their
Mm.
Sheffield and Nottingham stocks are separate from their online stock. So I'd have a browse. That is not a place you can browse. Not when it's busy,
Fair
because
enough.
everything is sideways on the
That's true.
shelves. It is like I was like, the chance of me buying something in there offhand, very limited anyway. But I was like, yeah, no, I'm getting out of here. But it's cool.
I
It
was
was
quite
cool.
impressed how much hobby
Mm,
stuff they had, as in paints. They had all of the
yeah,
paints in there, which, as you say, considering it's a pretty um, focused shop, it's a pretty
it's
small
like
shop. I
walking.
was quite
It's like
impressed.
walking in one of those antique shops where there's just
Yeah,
stuff is just random on shelves. And you're like, oh, cool. I'm looking at an old porcelain boot next to a teddy bear, next to a whatever, and you're like, I'm in Element, and it's roughly 40k, and then there's something right next to it, and then there's something, and yeah,
yeah,
it's mental, but it's cool. I mean, it was popular, it was busy.
yeah.
Yeah, really cool. And I mean, talk about
I think they've
convenient.
got gaming space
Oh,
downstairs.
have
I
they?
think they've got gaming space
Blimey.
downstairs. I think so.
But yeah, super convenient. I mean,
Yeah, it
not far
is.
from the Games Workshop either, like a few doors up,
Mm,
which is
mm.
great really because you could come out of Games Workshop thinking, yeah, I do really want to buy that. Let's go and see if Element have got it. So anyway,
Yeah.
Element Games, wonderful supporters of the show. Right, should we? So what? Christmas? Did you get any hobby done?
Let's. Basically no, because despite having nearly 3 weeks off work, because that's how we roll, I continued to be very unwell. Thank you, chest infection. As is my theme, it seems, at Christmas, when continuing what happened at university and then just forevermore, it seems, you're sort of working yourself up. When you're working and going crazy, that's fine, rushing for deadlines. And then you relax, and in come the
Yeah,
bugs. So I didn't get much done. I have, however, what hobby I have been doing has all been Legion Imperialis.
cool.
And I have now got some paint on some infantry, or specifically some Space Marine infantry. I've got a few tanks built. I think I've nailed my red scheme for Blood Angels. I think I'm pretty happy with the little Imperial Fists contingent. I'm beginning to wobble and think, am I doing Imperial Fists? Is a mix of Imperial Fists and Blood Angels a little bit gamey? I'm not 100% certain. I wonder if I should have just stuck with a single Legion.
Why would it be
That's
gaming?
just me.
Just having more than one Legion?
Because, not specifically, but it's because I've gone, missile launchers are better as Imperial Fists, so I'll do them as Imperial Fists. I think that's the wrong motivation.
Yeah.
That said, I like Imperial Fists. I like Blood Angels.
I mean,
I like Ultramarines, and I might do some Ultramarines as well. So
if you've got if part of your force is going to sit deeper and part of your force is going to go on the offensive, then the Imperial Fists are going to be the force you normally pick to sit deeper, and the Blood Angels will be.
and that's what I was thinking.
So yeah,
And that was where I started. So I'm going to stick with that. And I'm just seeing a lot of people do the same thing, but that could be for the same reasons. And also a Siege of Terror style list.
yeah.
It's like, yeah,
I think
could
when
be.
you start putting in the minimum sized detachments of Emperor's Children
Mm,
in to get your one per game, choose
mm.
initiative, that kind of thing, I think. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be fine.
That's a different motivation. Yeah, I was just hesitating. That's all.
Because I mean, I'm doing
But
Space Wars,
enjoying
and
those.
I think their
Mm.
rule is mediocre. at best, which is like no outflankers and
Yes.
stuff. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's quite cool in certain matchups, but there are some where you're just not going to get to use it much, or if at all.
It's not one of the more impactful special rules for sure. But thoroughly enjoying that as a scale. I used a bit of time sort of working out how to. I've taken all the infantry off and stuck them on. I ended up using bamboo skewers, like kebab skewers, to stick the infantry on for painting, which I'm glad I did because I think a Zenithal highlight does benefit the infantry slightly, admittedly, but with contrast paints it works a treat. And that doesn't work if you do that. Well, it doesn't work as well if you spray them on the frame because the infantry are all in different orientations. What else have I done? I got a game of Titanicus in, managing to do a training game for the upcoming Beachhead event, which with our good friend Ant, who we played the game with him, and it turned into. I didn't quite expect him to turn up and go, "So what's the list?" I was like, "Oh, right, okay." Let's go for this. And we even set ourselves a little timer to try and set to the time limit of the games, and we overshot that by a factor of about 3, which was fun. So it was a long old day, but thoroughly enjoyed being back playing some Titanicus.
That's cool. That is
What about yourself? Did you get any time in?
a little. I've got some Space Marine tanks painted, pretty much completely painted for Legions Imperialis, like a very small amount.
Very cool.
Yeah, I had a. Well, let's do this. I've done some stuff I can't talk about. Went very little. Did a little bit of paint on that. Built some giants for Age of Sigmar because I got them for Christmas, and I was like,
Yes. Didn't you play some games with them?
played one up at Warhammer World again against good friend of the show, James, and he's going to an event in a month, I think, and has a partially painted Cities of Sigmar army ready for that event, and wanted so we said, we'll play a practice game so we can help him with that, and let's say he learnt a few things, which you kind of most people who play against Sons of Behemoth for the first time do, but that was good fun. It's very much Sons of Behemoth that way are like really simple, chilled out army, like 4 models and push them around and can be quite fun. But that's about it really. Lots of time spent with family and then trip up to Nottingham and all that all means you don't get as much hobby done and there's a bit of reading going on as well. But I was gonna say, played a game of Legions Imperialis to try and get the rules in my head.
Oh, cool.
Just with my mate had the solo auxiliary that come in the box and used a warhound, and then I took some of the Space Marine stuff I've got, which is cool. Trying to get to there's a couple of rules in there. I'm not 100% sure. The wording's not great on a couple of the rules, but and I think Ben as well hadn't had as much reading time of the rules as I had, so was like, how does combat work? Like you did what when 4 Terminators charged my Titan? He killed the first 3 bases, and then the 4th base beat him and did a wound, that kind of thing. And then Titan blew up and killed him. Killed 3 out of 4 models that were around his base, which was quite good fun. But it was good to kind of get a grip on, like, you put a unit of assault marines down and they can move 21 inches when they march. Like, that's quite far. Like, but also then looking at some of the ranges, like I built one of my Kratos with a melter cannon on the as its main weapon. It's like an 8-inch range weapon. It's like, and I put las cannons on it because it's all anti-tank. Then and I'm like, okay, if I do this, then I have to have 2 of them, and they have to just barrel it up the table to get the most out of them, which is fine. But you just have to know that, it's one of those things. So,
there's some on that specific topic of sort of combinations of how to equip things. I've listened through the Heresy channel on
what's his
YouTube.
name?
I would highly recommend that.
Yeah, Just Play Ian.
He's had some very good discussion.
Ian,
He sort of came. He left it for a while because he was doing Heresy. But he left that and put that on hiatus for a while, but has produced more shows specifically for Legions Imperialis. and they've been really interesting.
Yeah, he's quite not competitive, but definitely looking at
Oh yes,
the value of each thing. That's his approach.
yes, he is.
That's the way he
But
games, I
he,
think.
what I think is quite good. Yes, I agree. And then what he also is doing is saying, and some of these things are perhaps disproportionately
Yeah,
powerful. Be aware of that, and maybe consider adjusting how you take these things for the good of a fun game with your
yeah,
opponent. And he's highlighted a few things that he thinks are a little bit bonkers. But interestingly, I mean, that's a story I've heard across from a few people. However, I've heard it generally, in fact, almost overwhelmingly, that Legions is a really fun game, despite the fact there's a few bits in it that are a little bit. There's a few units that are a little bit out of
there
whack.
always will be. Like rending
Indeed.
seems to be a pretty powerful rule. Um,
Yeah.
like again, the guy I played Gummer, he was like, "Oh, I'm going to roll these two dice. I can't remember what they charged. I think they charged some rhinos." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm pretty sure you get an extra dice." No, that's way too powerful. I was like, "Do you want to read the rule?" He's like, "I
Mm,
do get an extra dice." I'm like, "Yeah, this is why like them into." Yeah, he's like, "These guys are over the top powerful," and I'm like, "However, you charged 4 bases into my rhinos, and my rhinos overwatched you and killed 3 of those bases because they've got no armor."
mm.
So yeah,
And that's that. And he makes that point in these videos as well. And his point is that that rule is broken because mathematically they almost can't lose
yeah,
against most things. However, getting them there is a thing, and
yeah, and they don't
as you
have any
say, the
transfers.
arrows one
I think the
exactly.
fundamental, the thing because like people are using the Titans to bulk forces up a little bit at the moment as well.
Mm,
And the Warhound did take a lot of fire. And he was like, "These are really powerful." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I also don't have a shadow sword or a,
mm, mm,
whatever like Titan killing model on my.
mm.
Yeah, I'm shooting you with las cannons, which aren't that effective against.
No,
In the end, weight of las cannons kind of did it, but. And then he's turning around with his Gatling gun and going, I've done 10 hits on your infantry at -1 save. And it's like, oh, okay, they're probably dead then. Um, but the durability of
did you take
tanks,
any aircraft?
no, not yet. Durability of tanks like the Kratos with a 2-up save. He must have hit them, I
Mm.
don't know, 4 or 5, 6 times with um, the plasma gun from the Warhound. And I made like 4 out of 6 5-up saves to keep them alive. It was just like, yeah, boy, these are tough.
These guys,
These
these guys
guys
know
are
what they're
good.
doing.
But yeah, there was a lot of little things like the heavy sentinels, like pack a
Mm.
punch. There's a lot of shots coming out of them. But again,
Sleeper
he was
hit,
like, "These are brilliant,"
sleeper
and
hit
I'm
those
like, "But they
things.
got a 4-up save, dude. Like, they got a decent
Mm.
range, but again, if my las cannons were that side and were shooting you, or my missile launchers were that side and shooting you, you'd be losing them at a much quicker rate."
Mm.
But target saturation again, like all those little things that come into it.
Did he have any Lehman Russ?
Yeah. Yeah, they walked up and just
Did he have any with
shot the
Vanquisher
hell out
cannons?
of my Predators turn one. It's like, oh,
Mm.
I've got no
Mm.
Predators left. But
The Vanquisher cannon is problematic in its current form.
I
Its
haven't.
its range and its power
At
is
20,
crazy good. 21.
21, yeah, good. But again, I don't know that it's. See, the problem is there's a lot of people saying problematic, like Titans are too good. All this. We don't have the game out yet. We have a
No,
limited
exactly. We don't have
selection
anything like the range.
of
Yeah.
models. So
Why I hesitate about aircraft because there's a lot of people saying that particularly the Solar Auxiliary, or rather the Imperial Navy aircraft are bonkers good. Yes, but aircraft are fragile and get some proper
yeah, but this
AA.
is it,
I
isn't it?
wonder if that's going to
Like
change it.
there should be some good AA options coming.
Yeah, exactly.
And then
Yeah.
the whole thing changes again. And like, solar auxiliary infantry are rubbish, but they're not protected at the moment. Like, so they just die. Like,
Mm,
it's,
mm,
it is what it is. So, and either way,
mm.
at the end of the day, I'm not playing it to be competitive. So if something turns
No,
out to be
no.
OTT, then we'll say, come on, just drop them for a game, that kind of thing.
And that's where that's the game I'm coming from. That's where
Yes.
Heresy
Yeah.
sort of makes that
His
point. And so
primary
let's look
focus.
at the mechanics to see.
It was
Yeah,
more me just saying that he does top 10 videos. He does of rankings
yeah,
videos, things like that. So because he runs apparently some quite good events up there as well. It's just a
mm.
long way from me.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah, there's his primary his mind works that way to look at, and mine does a
mm.
bit to a
He's
point,
looking at the mechanics of it.
but I think there's a bit more
He's looking
balance.
at the mechanics of it. I think you can't. I can't not look at that. But I like the idea of thinking
There,
at it
it's a scale, isn't
from
it?
how can you make this
Yeah.
fun?
But
Yeah,
his primary focus is almost mechanically how good is it, and then works out
yeah,
how it works. Whereas I think we're a bit more level. With this is cool and a
mm,
bit of a problem, or this is
mm,
cool
mm,
but no one's
mm.
going to take it unless you know. So it's all good.
Yeah. Or know what you're going
Yeah.
to know what to expect of how this thing might perform.
So I
Yeah.
think, I think my opponent Ben, I think he's already ordered a second box, gave in, selling his Space Marines off to get more soda, waiting for more Malcadors to come out because they were quite tough, cool, and
Mm.
hoping for more bits. And we'll get on to news in a bit. But yeah, so but the big thing for me was painting them. So we're going to talk about a few bits, but set myself like some stupid goals for 2024. Um,
I was open
and we're going to
mouthed
get
when I
into
saw
that,
that list be
but
posted.
I was like, I've semi-copied aspects of GW's How to Paint Space Wolves Legions Imperialis, and the main bit being just a known oil wash over at the end, right? And I was
Mm.
like,
Mm.
my problem is my painting skill is limited. My painting speed is one of, if not the slowest I know. Right, and that's just not exaggeration. I'm terribly slow at just getting paint on models. It is what it is, right? Kind of trying to get to grips with that. And I was like, okay, I need to paint. Oh, what more do I need to do on these models? And they're what's the grey I'm using? I'm using grey. No, it's not that one. I'm using grey green from Vallejo Model Air,
Mm.
which
Interesting.
isn't that
Mm.
green. So you put a known wash on it, and the green kind of comes through a little bit more. But at that scale,
Oh,
it's definitely a tinge of green in there. Once the known oils on it, it was quite different. But at that scale, on the board, it's fine. It's cool. Don't mind it. And I was like, right, I've got a little bit of silver on some gun weapons. I've got some black with the grey. I will put some transfers on at some point when I learn how to get good at transfers. I'm not going to do much else to these models. That
no,
is it. I am
no.
stopping. And that for me, my problem was I'm slow. I'm not that good. But I want to paint my own models and I want to paint them in a way or to a point which was sort of counterproductive to my skills and time and desire.
That's interesting.
And I think
Mm.
with Legions, with those models, anyway, I've got to a point where I'm like, that's the happy medium. That is,
Mm.
looks okay, doesn't take too long, and I can leave it. So I'm hopeful that that will be quicker than first thought, but we'll see.
I think that's a very sensible way of looking at it, and it's a conversation I've seen quite a lot of people posting about and talking about, because painting at that scale is a different prospect, particularly people who are quite into their painting and perhaps have experimented with and become reasonably comfortable with a load of different techniques, and they sort of go about taking on painting at that scale in the same
Mm.
way and thinking, yep, I'm going to apply an oil wash, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and it's just too time consuming, and it's too much for those, and adjusting the techniques
Yeah,
and adjusting which techniques they apply, and to a degree even what techniques he's deployed, um, has become a theme, and I think that's really interesting. And it sounds like you've done similar, which is, I think it's quite nice, because it's all, like pretty much any project, I suppose, is choosing how far do you go to reach what you have, what do you consider acceptable, or perhaps what you're trying to achieve with that thing. I can have an image in my head of what I'd like my models to look like, and I think I can probably achieve that, hopefully, or can strive
mm.
for it. But is it worth the investment in time? Not so sure. Am I going to be? I need to be just as happy with a lesser time investment and find the techniques to support that. And I think that's particularly true with his
it comes
scale.
down to what are these models for? Like Richard Gray
Mm.
will always paint to a higher level than most people because that's his base level. It's higher than most people. And then if he's going to show something off on his Patreon, he's going to paint it well. Like he is going to go for it. So he will paint a little Li tank amazingly well. But if he then wants to game with them, you can bet he's not painting them all to that standard because it's a different requirement in what he wants. And that's part of it as well. The other thing it's shown me is I can use the grey green on my space orbs for 30k, but I can't wash them down too heavily because the green will show up more at that scale. And it's not like green
Is that
green, but
old Nuln or new one?
old
Is that the old
old
Nuln?
known or new known oil. Don't know, to be honest. The new one. It'll
The
be the
old
new old
one,
one.
the old one's in the bigger pot. The new one's in the 24
That's
mil
the
pot. The
old
reason I
known.
ask that, well, the reason I ask that is because the old one stains the surface.
Yeah,
It creates it's almost like a filter or
true.
not quite a glaze, whereas the new one doesn't. It only goes in the recesses. That
Oh yeah, good
it's
point. Shoot,
different.
I might
Not everyone
try.
likes that. New Nuln oil might be worth a go because it
No,
may not be the
and no,
tint.
no, you're right. I
So
didn't think about
SARS
that. No, no, that's good. It's good because I've only
SARS.
painted 4 dreadnoughts and 6 for 5 vehicles, so I can get new known oil maybe when I'm out tomorrow.
I think the new Nuln oil is worth a go. It's quite markedly different,
Yes, you
which
are
has
right.
annoyed some people who were relying on that technique. But then there are other products that are similar.
Yeah, I can't.
Um,
So I'll get the new known oil
no,
and go for
but I think new Nuln oil I think might solve that.
cool. Either, I mean, I'm probably not just going to dip my 30k models in known oil anyway, but it's
No,
good to kind of have an idea of how the undercoat might, the base coat might react with that. So
I think that might react
yeah,
differently to
yeah, it might do.
new
We'll
Nuln.
see. We'll see. We'll have a look. So I'm still probably not going to dip it all in anyway. So
Hmm.
that's me for hobby and
That's
gaming.
quite a bit. You got quite a bit
Well,
there with games and
there was a
hobby.
little bit. There was a little bit. Not enough. Playing some Baldur's Gate 3. Still, it's all good. Too good that game. It's too good. All fun. Should we leave that there and come talk about the news? Okie dokie. Well, let's talk about what's been going on in Heresy Land. Should we go back and should we start with the FAQ? We're not going to go over the whole FAQ. It's been out over a month. There were just a few things that stood out. Fulmentaris.
Yes, that was the one that was probably the most talked about when it was dropped because it was quite a comprehensive. The FAQ it had a document that I think addressed most of the rules documents that exist for heresy, the rulebook, levers,
Yeah.
and legends, and all that kind of stuff. And of those, yes, Fundamentaris for the Ultramarines, Terminators with lookalike Iron Tyrants were took a bit of a hit. They took a bit of a rebalance, didn't they? And that was that. I think got a bit more of an amused reaction from the community to something that was famously perhaps a little bit on the more potent side.
Well, I mean,
Is no longer.
some people got their knickers in a bit of a twist that they were suddenly terrible and never worth taking. What we got? 290 points for 5 of them. Still ballistic skill 5. What do they come with? Would come with the missile arrays and blah 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 blah. But the missile arrays are now 36-inch strength 4 AP5 heavy 4 pinning or strength 7 AP4 heavy 1 breaching 4 plus, which puts them like just below some of the other, like, I think the problem is they've gone from like ridiculous to just under, like
Mm,
just maybe even just below average for
mm,
a Legion specific Terminator squad. The strength 7 is like, people are moaning about the strength 7 because you can't instant kill, you get your feel no pains and whatever. but they're still ballistic skill 5 dudes putting out strength 7 shots with breaching 4+. Like, it's not terrible. They can also gain night vision, and their shooting attacks get twin link once more is activated. So that one model may not move, but you can, become twin linked, which people are saying, ballistic skill 5 anyway. It's like, well, night fighting still -1. Like, guaranteeing hits is never a bad thing. Are they an auto take now? No, that's good. Could they be a little bit better? Maybe, but I don't think
They're
they're
not
like,
dreadful,
no,
but
exactly.
it's just the fact, as you say, it's just the fact that they were very good. Particularly the missiles were fairly insane, and now they're not.
Yeah, I still think there's a place for them. Maybe a bit expensive now, but
Can
again,
you remember what's changed? They've gone from strength 8 to strength 7. The Hellfire plasma missiles.
yeah,
Splinter missiles, I think, were
cannot remember
different
the
as well,
splinter
but I
missiles.
can't remember. No.
No, but heavy 4 pinning, yeah, they're only AP 5, and strength 4 to be fair, but 5 of them putting out 20
Heavy
shots.
4, yeah.
Exactly. You're going to get the odd wounds through here and there, and pinning's good. Yeah, it is what it is. At the end of the day, I'm just not that bothered. Yeah.
No, but that was the headline. I seem to remember that was the thing that got the most headlines of people talking about.
Yeah, there
Was
was.
the
Yeah, I mean that was the one that people either cheered or wailed and gnashed their teeth about. And it's not like the Ultramarines are short on good units within that document. So
no, and I
get over it.
think the assault squad
It's still,
took a bit
yeah.
of an adjustment because the assault squad was the what's it? The
The
Locutara Storm squad. They were very good,
mm,
and I think they still are.
yeah, they still are.
I think they've just
It's
had a
combat,
points
so I
adjustment.
kind of don't mind that. The other one was reactions, psychic powers in reactions. You can basically only use something that replaces your shooting attack now, which clears things up, and I think it's probably a sensible maneuver. There are some things which I think still state you can do it, but that's quite a nice little move. There were some nice little ones in there. There was one or two that were a bit like, yeah, whatever. At the end of the day, if you're in a gaming group, you can rearrange bits you need to. The only one that really disappointed me a little bit was corrupted. The corrupted legions can only use the right to war listed under the corrupted kind of section, which we've only got Emperor's Children's Force, it's only those two, which both require Fulgrim,
I
which
agree.
means you can't
I
get
think
around
that's a
some of
shame.
the weaknesses of the army because there are a lot of people are saying that the corrupted rules are terrible. Anyway, I'm not as sold on that as most people, but I think limiting them into locking them into those two rights of war does hurt them a lot. And it just reduces variability as well.
That's the key. That's what I think is a shame because
Yeah,
I think you could have had some cooler things, and you could just it lets you try more things.
I think
To lock it into that, I think seems a shame.
they could have even written on there like you're corrupted. This corrupted legion can choose these rights of war.
Mm,
Like
mm,
would have been, I don't think a bad thing. Like so no armored spearhead, cool. That
mm, mm,
or whatever you want, however you want to do it. Would have been a nice little thing. Maybe no Pride of the Legion, depending on how you want things to go. But
mm.
I don't
To
know.
lock it to two rights of war that require Fulgrim, I think seems a shame.
Yeah, big shame. Because as we say, like there was one thing that we talked about in that Fulgrim charging out of his special right of war ability,
Mm, mm,
but because you're not deploying via the deep strike or outflank rule, you can't actually charge out of reserves.
mm,
So that right of war also maybe not working quite the way it needs to work to make it viable.
mm.
I don't think I'd have a problem with Fulgrim being able to charge out of that, but yeah, it's a bit of a shame for a thing which people found underwhelming, whether it is or not. That's how they perceive it to be.
Mm.
So maybe we'll see some expansion on those in future books.
Yes.
We shall see. So we'll move on from the FAQ. We did get a nice update for Titanicus in that we have a download for the weapons cards for the
Yes.
Warhounds.
Which I was hopeful this would come along. I wasn't actually expecting it as a download, and it makes perfect sense, and I'm really
Yeah,
pleased they did so.
yeah, absolutely. Although, yeah, I mean, cards and flimsy terminals, and still not sure how I feel about that. Like, it's a bit of a pain, a bit of a
Mm,
disappointment. But that's GW and cards. They like their games that use them or
mm.
utilize them, but then they don't follow up on them that well, and they are not keen on changing them either, which locks you in a little bit. But there we go. It is what it is. What have we got? We've got the incisor pattern melter lance. Short 6 inches, long 10-inch, -1 accuracy, 2 dice at strength 9 with fusion.
Fusion at 6 inches, strength 9 base on a warhound. That's pretty cool.
Doesn't need any pushing of reactors to get decent hits in. I think if you're taking a warhound to be ultra aggressive, like you're putting this in the kind of legios that want to be right up close, you can just walk under someone's shields and fire this twice into the back of them. It's
That
going to
in
be grim.
a Ferox
Mm,
is pretty potent. You
yep.
start getting up. You're still going to quickly get up to strength 12 with fusion. You're on a D10. Like that's pretty potent.
Yeah. Yeah. Just as long as you can get there.
Yeah,
It's the 6 inches. You want to be in that 6 inches. And then you're using weapon skill, then, aren't you? Unless you're
which isn't horrendous. It's a 4+, so
which
still one of those is
legio
going through.
doesn't? Is it? Is it? I can do the
It's
roll
one of
twice.
it's one of the it's one of the
Manifolds, isn't it?
maniples. I think that's the Ferox
It's
you're
Ferox,
using
yeah,
ballistic skill,
which is pretty
and you
good.
get the additional +1 to the
Yes.
armor roll.
Yeah, so Ferox with that, yeah, as you say, and
Ferox
some of
in
the
the
legios
back +3. Yeah.
also just side,
Mm,
I mean, you're rolling a d10 and adding it to that 9 anyway. If you're Ferox, it's 10, add d10.
mm,
Yeah, that's 50% of the time you're critting almost not
yeah.
most things in the game, so most locations. So 25 points as well is not terrible. Interesting. So
No,
if you're playing ultra aggressive Warhounds, that's got a place. The Swarmer missiles.
I thought it was
Sure.
cool that you've got the two different missile types. So that was quite good fun.
Yeah. 12-inch short range at -1, 40-inch long range, 5 dice at strength 4 with rapid.
Mm,
So, and 10 points. So, same price as the Gatling,
mm,
fewer dice, one fewer dice, but twice the length, basically, twice the range.
yeah, I quite like these. The
I think this
-1's
is
a bit of a shame, but I
fantastic.
think makes sense. I
I,
really
I
like these.
don't care. Like,
Mm,
if I'm taking these and I'm on a Warhound chassis,
mm,
I'm not letting you get within 12
mm,
until
mm,
it's gone. It's too late then. It, the it does enhance the long range game, so I think the
mm,
missions need to be important. That there is need to move on the table, but I'm looking at. I mean, we're going to Beachhead in a month or so,
mm.
and I'm considering equipping some of these.
I tried one at the weekend, and I just had one because which was running. I've got a Regia maniple.
Originally.
3 warhounds and 2 warlords in there, and one of the warhounds, two of the warhounds are plasma Vulcans, as you'd expect. The other one was a plasma and a laser. I've never really got on with lasers, so I switched out the laser for one of these, and it was quite good. And I'm actually considering having a warhound with 2 of these
Well,
to be
I
able
mean,
to
this is it,
nip
right? So
around and throw, taking shields out from a distance. I think it'd be quite
previously,
fun.
I have used a shield stripper with twin Vulcan Mega Bolters
Vulcans. Mm,
because, yeah, 12 dice, sixes to extra hits to strip shields, and then potentially go and finish stuff off. This can't finish stuff off the same way because you're probably not getting the flanks or the rears quite as easy.
mm,
However, you are not reliant on. Sometimes that first turn I wasn't getting to shoot my Vulcan Megabots because if I moved into a position to shoot them, I either had to push the reactor or end up in a place where I didn't want to be. Chances are with this guy, you're going to be shooting first turn 10 dice from 2 of these for 20 points for nothing. Sit at the back, you're a bit more protected. They say you don't have to push your reactor to reliably strip some shields or something. I'm, if I'm playing and then the Warlord sat next to them ready to unleash once that's happened. Also really good for the Venator mana pool where you didn't always get to use the Venator straight away, the rule straight away. Like these are for 10 points.
I think the addition of the rapid trait was smart and has made them really appealing.
I wonder if 10 points is too cheap, but because to be honest, I think Vulcan Megabots are too cheap compared to Inferno Cannons and the other options, lasers particularly. But hey,
everything of that nature is compared with the Vulcan, of course, and these are the first thing I think that compare favourably.
Oh yeah, these are alongside the Vulcan for sure, and the Plasma obviously, which is very good value for what it is.
But then that's why the Melter Lance is quite interesting as an alternative. That not as good in my opinion, not as good, not as an all rounder. Much more specific. Yeah, the range really is challenging, but nice to have something that's in a similar role but different.
The Shudder missiles. So again, same ranges but no accuracy modifier at all. 2 dice at strength 6. Barrage, so you can hide them. Quake. Now I see Maximal Fire have put up a little preview. I haven't listened to the episode yet, but they put up a little preview where they seem to think that these are broken because of Quake. Because you'll be moving stuff all the time. Like you can hit 2 shots, 20 points. I think there'll be games where they're such an annoyance because stuff's turning and what have you.
Quake
Quake's movement, isn't it? Sorry, apologies. Quake's movement.
Quake is the one that halves your movement.
Yes, it's half, isn't it?
No, that only comes into play if you're hitting unshielded.
Yeah, but you got your Swarmer missile guy next to him, and then you only need to hit, don't you? With Quake, you don't need to damage.
That's what I don't know, and I wondered that in the game we were playing. We didn't have Shadow Missiles. I wondered that. I can't remember.
I got it completely wrong. But there is an argument that you could have negative play experience from having like a few dudes with these and just not allowing the enemy to move a great deal.
Yeah. If you're up against an opponent whose Legio and mana pool is geared around running up and punching you, this becomes tricky if there's lots of these. But there's going to be lots of them? I'm not sure. I don't think you're going to run.
No, but also I think there's a problem. I think there's a problem with some Legios being able to run and charge across the board turn one. I think that is an issue in the game. Another reason why I want to see a second edition of the game. I think there's small issues across the board. Like nothing's overly major, but the fact the Titan can fly across the board as fast as it can in some Legios just seems wrong to me. These guys, the potential negative play experience of that, potential really good for stopping objective play to push forwards, but against small Titans, potentially useful. Against big Titans, you need more than strength 6 to be hurting stuff. Yes. So limited, and you're only 2 shots, and it adds up having them on stuff. So are you really going to take a Warhound? What else do you pair with it? Do you pair Swarmer missiles? Do you pair the do you have another Shadow missile? Do you have the laser? Or do you go Vulcan Megabot and push him up?
Probably not. At which point the 14
it hasn't got the same synergy.
No, I agree with that.
But if you are planning on slowing stuff down, potential, and there is a potential negative play experience within that. What I find interesting with these 3 weapons, was there a 4th? Was there the Rogue?
Well, there's those 3, and then they've got the weapons that we've seen before. There's nothing else.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got the Volkite, the Shock Lance, and the Claw.
Yeah. So what's interesting is what they allow. So the incisor allows you to get up close and personal. Fair enough, cool. I think the swarmer makes the laser a better weapon because a lot of
Yeah,
the
I was
problem with
thinking
the
that's about the
laser.
only one you would pair it with. Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah. What's the range on the plasma? 20?
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
either 20 or 24. I think it's
yeah, it's
20.
around 24, and the Vulcan Mega Ball's 20. It's been a while. The problem with the laser is, unless you have two lasers, you're you can't sit back because you're wasting
Yeah.
half the shots. Lasers are -1 at long range, so they're
Mm,
not reliable, or as reliable, should I say. And if you want draining, then you're pushing the reactor. So
mm.
you want two lasers on a Warhound. I, I've I've taken a laser on a Warhound before.
I've
Rarely
never
have I
liked it.
found it that
I've
great.
never, I've never liked lasers, pretty much at all, but particularly not on a
I
warhead.
think it's got its place. I think it's got its place now on a Warhound with the swarmers because you can fire the draining off the laser first to hopefully knock a shield down. On a Warhound that takes you to 4 ups on shields,
Mm, mm.
right? So or to go that extra to start the process, as it were.
So
Um,
you think a laser and a swarmer missile, not a shudder
I
missile?
think it's a good option because the laser can then also hurt the Titan. So
I
if you've only got
see.
one or two shields left, you can fire the
Mm,
swarmer to hopefully take the shields down, and then the laser can target a weapon, what have you. So
mm,
the problem with the twin swarmer is once you've taken the shields down, that Titan then has to look at something else to take more shields down, unless the Titan's really hurt. It's only
mm.
strength 4, so even with +3, it's only strength 7. So you're only going after little Titans with it anyway. So you're limiting the scope of that Titan. You put the laser on it, and all of a sudden, I can actually just fire that laser, and if it's got +1 or +2 damage on that Titan, I've got strength 9 or 10 laser, or I can target that weapon and stop you
What
shooting.
about what about a mix of swarmer and shudder?
That
One
is
of each.
another, and that is an option where I think
Mm,
you might get, but again, you're not doing any damage or much
no,
damage. So,
no.
and that's fine, but that can't be like your only Warhound. It feels like
Mm, mm.
you know. But I mean, the Swarmer doesn't. You don't have to get within 12. So you can still take plasma on it and still be very useful. Don't get me wrong, but I think the Swarmer missiles and the Shudders to a point, but the Swarmers particularly make the laser a better option.
Agreed, agreed. It's because the laser, the range of the laser is about the only one of the existing weapons
It's
that
36,
lends
isn't it? The
itself with this.
laser
I would say it was 32 off the top of my head, but
32,
you might be
something
right.
like that. I can't remember. It's been a while.
The one that might be a possibility, I suppose, is the grab weapon, or conversion beamer. Those
Yes, the
two,
conversion beamer.
which
Sorry,
I'm not
yes.
super familiar with, the conversion beamer might be a possibility.
No, yeah, you're right. Actually, conversion beamer would be another option within
Mm,
that mix. But all of a sudden, you've got what it also does is mean if you're playing Audax, you've got more than just charging it up the table. If you're playing Solaria, if you're playing, or if you just want to play Eligio but just want to use lots of Warhounds, you don't have to swarm the board like to be effective. You can suddenly have Warhounds at the back whilst your smaller your more aggressive warhounds go forwards, and then someone saying, "Oh, do I shoot the guys at the back who are going to be pinging off shields and potentially doing damage with their grav weapons who want to be far away, or do I worry about the guy with Vulcan Megabolters who's trying to sneak around my side and he's going to plasma and Vulcan Megabolt me and potentially Melter Lance me?" It provides more play within that, which I think is cool. I still
mm,
think it
mm,
doesn't resolve the issues that I want the second edition for, which is
mm.
Vulcan Megabolt is still 10 points when it should be more. Um,
Yeah.
the Inferno should be cheaper. Uh, that kind of thing. I feel there's just lots of little niggly things, none of which break the game per se,
Mm,
but
mm.
mean like a 1.5, a new edition, a 1.5 clean up these rules, swap some points around would be a really, make the Warbringer more attractive. Those kind of things would really help AT, in my opinion.
Mm,
But
mm.
it's an interesting place at the moment. We've yet to see. exactly how AT is going to live within the space going forwards.
Well, particularly, yes, given some
Well,
recent
yeah, and we'll
news,
get
but we'll
onto
come to that.
that in a bit. Anyway, cool. So what do we have? Let's do non-heresy stuff first. So
Oh,
Amazon.
yes, indeed. The that announcement that could sort of came a little bit out of the blue, but yeah, it was quite a
Well,
positive statement, wasn't it? Kind of.
yeah, and lots of conspiracy theories about why it was announced. There was a
Mm,
rumor doing around that someone at GW had screwed up the deal and signed away everything. Categorically rubbish, I think, or categorically wrong, was what I was told by
yeah,
someone pretty close to the events going on. Uh,
but potentially, if there was false or otherwise, if there's a well, clearly it appears to be entirely false based on the fact that they made the announcement that they did. Um, it may have been something that they had to address.
yeah, and then the conspiracy theories about it was to lower share prices. No, just rubbish.
Well,
Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, if there are rumors out there, bearing in mind it's a publicly traded company doing quite well, they have to kind of be aware of that. We are still years off anything happening. I
yeah.
think this is the thing people haven't understood, like an agreement to make big screen and small screen. I
Mm.
think,
Yes, it is. It's both,
yeah, it's both of them.
but that's
With
options
screenwriters
for
writing
both.
stuff, yeah, is like stuff stays in development hell for years, sometimes for 20. Some stuff has been agreed upon like 18 years before it reaches screen.
Mm,
So it is a long, long way from happening, but they're doing all the right things, moving forwards with it. Um,
mm.
I know, someone who's involved with this has had a lot of text messages recently saying, "Yeah, you got any jobs? You need any help with anything?"
Yeah,
And
quite.
yeah, it's all good fun. But yeah, no, I'm super excited for that. I think there's a lot of potential, and I wonder what makes me wonder is quite interesting people's views on Warhammer Plus and stuff like that. But I think Warhammer Plus was almost as much proof of concept as
Mm,
anything else in
mm.
terms of their animation and stuff like this. Like, here we go, Amazon. People want to watch this. Look at what we've made. Um, I don't think it's taken off quite how GW wanted it to, but also like with Critical Role, their proof of concept was we've raised $12 million on Kickstarter. People want to
Mm.
watch this. All of a sudden, Amazon then go, say you've got a project you want to work on. Do you want some support with that? Because $12 million isn't enough to make 2 seasons
Yeah,
of animation. So maybe we
it's
can
like
help you with that.
that's a way we can support that and be mutually beneficial. Yeah.
Yeah, but you can't just turn around. I've got an idea, and like every one in 1,000 of those ideas get picked up. Why Amazon going to do something off that bat without for another company to then benefit everything off without that kind of thing? But Henry's name, Henry Cavill's name also adds weight into that and opens doors. I'm sure that might be harder to open without it. Um, but it's super cool. I think.
Mm.
I'm super curious to see where they go. But I'm not expecting Horace Heresy, the TV show. It's not going to happen.
Not anytime soon. No, I
It
think there's
shouldn't
going to be
happen, to be honest. It's been terrible.
far other products. Yeah, there's going to be other projects that would suit it. It's going to, no, anyway, you can speculate all day, but it'll be, crossing everything that it's going to be really good.
Yeah, absolutely enjoyable at least. It's been fairly quiet over Christmas, actually. We did get the trailer for what is coming in 2024.
Of which it was very interesting because previously I think they've been amalgamated. They've just said, here's stuff that's coming. This time they did it as, maybe they did this last year, I'm not 100% certain, but this time it
They
was
did.
3 trailers and they did it for the core games. So
Mm.
they did it for 40k, Age of Sigmar, and Horus Heresy.
What is really interesting is I don't know if you saw the enhanced zoom
I
in,
did. I
enhance,
did. I did see the
or
enhance,
played with the
just
contrast, and
adjust the contrast and brightness, etc.
yeah. I mean, the guy with the flag looks like he's uh, coming from the new command set.
Yes, and appears to be painted as an Imperial Fist, but it's clearly going to be Legion
It's,
agnostic, and appears to be in Mark III, which was a bit of a
yeah, which
surprise.
is interesting, isn't it? Really.
I was expecting it to be Mark VI, but it
Yeah,
appears to be Mark III.
which is cool. For command set, you might find that they choose to put different things in different models and different marks,
Indeed,
which
indeed.
would be really cool. Did we talk about the apothecaries? Were they out? Yes, they were last time we talked, weren't they?
No, no, they're a
Were
recent
they
thing.
not?
They're
I
a
think I
really
missed
recent
them
thing.
on my thing.
They're a
What do
really
you think of
recent
the
thing.
apothecaries?
Love them. I really like them. I thought both of them were very characterful models. I thought they were really well put together. I would like them. They were instant. I mean, they're so useful as
Yeah,
models to have, and I just think
bit
as
of
a
a shame
base for
they're
a
in
couple of
resin
things.
and there's not an apothecary pack of like a couple of models in a small box. But
Yes, fair
it is what
point.
it is.
There's a precedent for that in things like in 40k you've got Eldar Warlocks where you get this twin pack,
Yeah,
and there's variation there, so you're likely to have even more variation because you're likely to have quite a few of them. As you say, a pack of 2 or 3 even would have been cool. However, loving to see some Mark V,
yeah.
and I just thought they were both really nicely. The details on them are great.
And it'll
I
be
thought.
interesting to see how they do the command pack and the command
Mm,
set and what's in there and adding on stuff and things like that.
mm, mm,
GW have over the last few years really, particularly specialists, have really started to delve into the old lore
mm, mm,
and stuff like that as well. And command squads in 40k used to be guy with a flag, apothecary, what
mm.
have you. And I wonder if they might throw in a few echoes of that for their command squad.
Well,
There's
particularly
plenty
as
I don't
there's
know.
an apothecary. Was it apothecaries? Could you have 3 or 5 in a unit in a
Three, isn't
slot?
it?
So 3
Is it?
exactly. So you get 2 in this set.
Yeah,
Maybe the third one is in the command set. Who
yeah.
knows?
Who knows?
Or parts to
And,
make that model.
but yeah, they're cool models. They're cool models like the
I really
apothecaries.
like them. I
Um,
didn't realise that the previous apothecary kit was no longer available.
did you know it has been? Yeah, it's been a grumble for a while.
No, I didn't
Um,
realise that.
yeah, I mean, the next image goes along with the fact that a lot of Solar Auxilia stuff is now no longer available on site.
Mm.
But we have got our first glimpse of a Solar Auxilia model, which can only guess is going to be in plastic.
Well, it
Because
would be
why would it
logical,
not
wouldn't
be?
it, with a new model?
Indeed.
Yeah. Otherwise,
And then,
why would you go out of stock on the
yeah,
other models?
and then alongside it, a chicken walker
Yeah, that
with
was a
some
bit of a
kind of
surprise.
uh,
Looking very reminiscent of the Star Wars Clone Walker thing.
yeah. I mean,
Mm.
there's only so many ways you can do walkers with guns attached, isn't there?
Oh yeah,
At the
no,
end of the day.
not saying
Yeah.
it shouldn't look like that. It's just
No,
interesting to
just
see a
yeah,
lighter Walker
with a nice
for
multi-powered
them.
gun on the front, which is quite
Mm.
cool. Yeah, looking forward to that. So I would expect these to be first quarter.
Yeah, it'll be within. As you
We've
said,
got
the standard model is that we're within 3 months of a
yeah, and it's a
T.
bit
Well, not
different with this
necessarily a
because
T.
this is
Yeah,
yeah, and they haven't always done that. And this is
no.
what's coming in 2024. However, we have LVO coming up where we normally get a GW
Yes.
release trailer. 2 months after that is Adepticon, and then no news of Warhammer Fest yet. When tickets went on sale
Mm.
before this period, heard rumours they're not doing it. Don't know how true that is. Can't imagine they don't do something. Plus, you've got they'll have to do Golden Demon in some way. And then so that was traditionally May. So yeah, I think we'll see these
It's a
before
good point
too
about
long.
Warhammer Fest. If they were going to do a fest of some variety, tickets
Tickets went on sale
and
November
announcements.
last year
That's a good point.
for last year's. Um,
So that
so
could be something that they bring back in house or
well,
take a break
I'm
while they
wondering. Well,
consider what they're
I
going
mean,
to do.
I heard they weren't doing it.
Mm.
And mm, yeah, pinch of salt. Don't get me wrong. This is proper
Mm-hmm.
rumor. No information whatsoever. But they're talking about a golden demon. I can't imagine them stopping a golden demon. Maybe a move
Mm.
golden demon back to being in Warhammer World.
Mm.
At the end of the day, the rumor, the scuttlebutt was that it wasn't as commercially successful as they wanted it to be,
Mm.
which, yeah, and if that's true, and it's a big if, then we don't know what their view on commercially successful is, because it's also their biggest marketing day in a
Mm.
way. So maybe the tournaments didn't
But
sell out
speaking
enough.
speaking to that point, it seemed to be across the various channels, and by that I don't mean you
Yeah,
social media channels. I mean various platforms, forums, generic social media, creators, YouTube channels, on and on and it goes. It was universally, it wasn't positive
no.
it wasn't overwhelmingly positive.
Unless you were
Everyone had
involved.
say, "Oh, here's things to improve."
Yeah, unless you were involved in the events, it was generally a more, well, lackluster response,
Mm.
at least,
At best.
to that.
Mm.
Yeah, at best. And we know they're not going to put sculptors and authors up. Like they
No.
just don't do that anymore. They're pulling away from that, with the authors being on other stuff as well.
Mm. Mm.
So, like, what are they going to do? And I don't
Yeah.
think the third party um, retailers that were there, the licensees had that much success with what they were doing, apart from one or two
No.
little things. So I'm not sure that they were that keen. Um,
Mm. In
so
which case,
yeah,
what is it for?
yeah,
Yeah, we gave our thoughts on the show on that event
mm.
at the time, having attended it and attended it
I
in a
mean,
particular way, and it yeah, I could entirely see them having to
my
rethink what that
view,
is.
if it was on this year, was I'll go up the night before, I'll do one day and come home. I'm
Yeah,
not
agreed.
doing more than one
Mm.
day.
No.
If they turn around and said we're going back to Coventry, we're going to have people there, I'd be like, yeah, cool, I'll do 2 days straight away.
Yes.
But
Yes.
I just don't think they're going to do that. So
No.
they're going to have to review that. But I'm sure they'll do a stream instead or something like that around it.
Yes, I would
And we
imagine
also
there'll be
got
something, but it won't necessarily. It's not going to be what we recognise.
no, we're going to have Black Library Celebration coming up as well. Um,
Mm.
we're in. We've just had the or the order window is just about to go live for the stuff to be released on the 20th. We saw Amazon were talking about the End of Death Part 3 being available from the 20th. I wonder if that's the pre-order date for it coming out on Black Library
The
Celebration Day,
20th
January.
of really.
Yeah, because it was. I
Okay.
was like, because I looked at it, and it was like, huh, available that day. Like, surely if it's around
Mm.
then, it would be near the Black Library Celebration, which first weekend of February could be right.
Mm. Mm.
I mean, I get this is conjecture. This is me. There's no facts in this at
No,
all.
that's interesting. I assumed it was going to go up for pre-order on the Black Library celebration weekend, but you're right. It might be
Again,
available
maybe you
then.
might be right. Amazon have been wrong before, many
Yeah.
times. So
Yes, particularly on that.
yes.
I
Anyway,
don't think the last time we spoke, I don't believe the Saboteur had been shown.
no, you might be right.
Alpha Legion Saboteur, which was a bit of a surprise for me, certainly. I think it's a beautiful model. Big fan of that guy.
I've got to go and find him now. It's not on my. I've done a poor job on getting
Oh
my
dear.
things ready. It's just getting sloppy after Christmas. It's all that extra food I've been eating.
Again,
Yeah,
a little
partly
hint
because
at
we recorded
a
so late in December.
yeah, well, yeah, we did try, didn't we? And then we had our technical challenges, and then Christmas came in.
Yeah,
But
I think it's a cool model. I think,
I like it. I think it's really characterful.
yeah, I think the cloak makes him look quite squat, quite square. I think that's my
Yeah.
only
Okay. You
kind
think
of.
that's a
He looks
negative?
like a rectangle.
That
Um,
doesn't sound like a positive review.
yeah, like I think the model's well done. Don't get me wrong. Um, it's a cool pose, but
The
I
only thing
think
I
I just
wonder
think the
about him
cloak
is if he
hanging
should
like
have.
that.
I wonder if he should have more. His armor should be more plain.
It's always a tricky one, isn't it, with Alpha Legions?
Mm. But specifically with the Saboteur,
Yeah,
because I quite like the idea of painting him in another
different.
legion's colours,
Yeah,
or painting him in generic, painting him almost like
suppose that's what the
a
cloak's
knight
there
errant.
for, though.
Yeah, kind of, but then very
Yeah,
distinctively Alpha Legion behind it. That's my only thought. That said,
not
there's
when he
plenty
wraps
of
that
reasons
cloak
why.
around him and you can't see him anymore.
You
Sneaky,
can't see
sneaky.
me,
Yeah,
lumpy thing walking through, humming along. But
exactly.
I love it. It's Mark. Is it?
Yep,
Is it
it's
Mark
one of
Five?
the marks. You are absolutely right.
Yeah, it is a mark of armor. I think it's
I
Mark
just,
Five.
I'm almost at the point now where I just don't
I don't
care.
care. Yeah, fair
I'm
enough.
just like, do I like it? Yeah. Like so many of the
Particularly,
characters, particularly, are coming with
mm,
like, and people go, "Oh, that's Mark 3," and then someone else goes, "No, that's Mark 5," and it's like, well, it's not really any mark.
no,
It's
it is
elements
particularly
of
true when it's a console. Yeah, when it's
yeah,
something, and particularly a Legion specific one.
yeah,
Yeah,
because and there's artificer armor and everything else, and it's just
yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just like, we are not. We are also playing a future historical game. Right, this
yeah,
isn't me putting Custer's army down and someone going, well, they're in, blah, 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 they didn't have
yeah.
brass
You've got the
buttons,
wrong
they had
buttons.
silver buttons. Like,
Yeah,
I get that more in a proper historical game. Like, it's like they haven't written the lore for this guy. Like, yeah, they haven't. He's a generic guy. Like, they haven't written the lore for this specific guy because he's not
no,
named.
he's not a
So,
named guy.
no,
Yeah.
exactly.
Did you, when you went to Warhammer World out of interest, did you pick up or did you indeed see the? I think you were after a Legion. Well, there's the new Space Wolf stuff, but there was also
Space Wolf 1.
the traitor Praetor or champion rather.
Space Wolf 1 is in stock online, but not in the shop. The Traitor Legion, the Traitor Champion, is not on stock at all.
Interesting.
So I
Super
was like,
popular.
you know what? I will order it when I need to order some other stuff.
Fair dues.
I'm cool. So yeah, bit of a sad thing. There was the only two things I was going to buy, but
Mm.
hey, it's all good. Anyway, um, Legion's Malcadors in furnaces
Yeah,
and
little tiny tanks of slightly odd nature.
Tank Hunters. Yes, super cool.
I
Um,
was quite enjoying how divisive these were in the community in terms of people's
oh, were
responses,
they?
not with how they were um, represented, because they are a very, as is been done with all of the Legion stuff, a
Faithful.
brilliant representation
Yeah.
of what they are in the larger scale. What it did do was reignite the discussion of, sorry, what? What is this crazy tank? Why has it got a little trailer running around after behind it?
It
Is that cool? Some
amazes
people
me.
loved that. Some people
Yeah.
not a fan. Same with even with the Valdor. Is it the Valdor? Am I talking rubbish? The Malcador with the neutron laser. Only having
Yeah.
being the sort of slightly asymmetric design where it's got a sponsor on one side and not on the other. That was amusingly lively for some people.
It ever amazes me how myopic some gamers can be, um, who talk about Warhammer all the time. You know,
Mm,
fair enough if you're a casual and you play Age of Sigmar, and you might only know about, and you might not know all of that's going on in Age of Sigmar. But when you're on forums that are dedicated to the hobby, or
mm,
discords or what have you, and people go, "Oh, I didn't even know that was a thing," and I'm like, "How? Like, you're on a thing with all this content and everything else."
mm,
And now Horus Heresy is supposed to be GW's third game, and the amount of 40k players who have no idea about the range of models
mm,
in Heresy. I find it a bit strange at times. I'm like,
mm,
but it's amazing how many have zero idea, and it's like you're still fighting quite an element of that with Heresy. I think
mm.
of this whole blind to the nature of what's going on,
I can
and I think
understand that a bit more recently, just because of the size of some of these ranges. I think the fact that, I mean, you and I have played this game for rather have been into the hobby sufficiently long that we've seen it grow and you kind of keep up with it. If you're coming into it new, I could imagine there'd be a certain overwhelming
I don't,
nature of it. But then
yeah,
what you're describing is someone who's
not a
invested in it and
casual,
interested.
yeah,
Exactly. So
right, and
yeah,
that
I
they're
take your
on
point.
Warhammer Community, right,
Yeah, yeah. Mm,
and they're seeing posts on Facebook, and so it's like, and whether they just switch off, maybe, and maybe I'm being,
mm.
maybe I'm being a bit of an idiot about it, but it's you when you go on a 40k forum or a Discord or a Facebook profile, and you're like put up a picture of a certain model, and people go, "I've never seen that before." And you're like I I can't believe you've never seen it before. And I appreciate that might be a hyperbolic statement, but like not. Oh, one of those. Yeah, what are they called again? Fair enough. Cool. You're not interested in that. But it's like going back to the time London GT2, the first one I was involved with at the old venue, when there were two mastodons on a table by the door. And I put them there specifically because people would be walking in and out at lunchtime. And I watched people go, "What is that?" And it's like, well, they were, yeah, Forge World back then. And I mean, even then, like they were being reported on. It's not like they were completely like hidden away. But you're still getting a lot of that now, which I find a little bit surprising. But I mean, it's not helped when we get to things like Model of the Year, when there are no resin models allowed. Last year there was. Horus Ascended was an option. Like this year, let's face it, right? I mean, it's a bit of a joke thing. It's a bit of silly fun, but it's a popularity contest, literally a popularity contest.
Yes.
Therefore, every single winner for 7 years now has been 40k model, 6 years, whatever it is. And that will always be the case because there are more 40k players, and they won't even look at Age of Sigmar. And I think, I mean, the Lion one, don't get me wrong, the Lion's a beautiful model. I could off the top of my head, could think of 7 or 8 models from different ranges that are much better than the Lion. And the Lion's fantastic, but I think you only have to look at the Harbinger of the Nurgle Harbinger for Age of Sigmar, the horse guy from Cities of Sigmar, the Fulgrim. I mean, just
Fulgrim is
like,
the real, like
I
the
mean,
work that's
I was
gone into
quite
that.
I was quite proud of my tweet. I was like, imagine being voted the best model of 2024, and you're not even the best Primarch released that year.
Yeah,
I mean, there's an
that would make me
argument.
smile,
There's
I
a
think.
quite a strong argument. You're the third best Primarch released that year,
Mm,
behind
mm,
Angron and Fulgrim.
mm,
But they're never going to win it, even if you could vote for Fulgrim, because people. I think part of it is people just forget as well. Like, oh yeah,
yeah.
I didn't realize Fulgrim was a model because I can't
I
use him
did
in
quite like
40k.
the model of the year. You could vote for everything or other anything that had been released.
They've
I
done
quite
this for a
enjoyed my
couple of
friend.
years.
I
Yeah.
didn't realise it was quite been like that. Grant, my friend Grant, had put up on his Instagram post. He said anyone who isn't voting for the Imperialis city tiles
Yeah.
is a coward. So
I mean, it's
I enjoyed that because that would have been wonderful if that had won.
why is resin not an option on there? It's never going to win. It was before. Do you think someone just forgot to code that in as an automatic kind of load? It's a joke.
Didn't check that filter box. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Fulgrim for me, Fulgrim wipes it all with the line. And again, like
I mean,
it's
in
not a
just in
diss.
terms of no, the
The
sculpting
Lion is just
quality of
another
that
Space
is yeah.
Marine. He's a really well done Space Marine. Just another Space Marine. As I say, I think him and some of the Cities Sigmar, potentially the guy on the horse, I think is one of the best models they've done in a long time. And I think Cities of Sigmar, I think when you look at that, I think Age of Sigmar in general is like, I think it's blowing 40k out of the water. And there is an
Model
element.
wise,
I was
yes. I
listening to
mean, their
someone
model
talk
wise. I
today.
mean, all of the Seraphon range is
Yeah,
bonkers good. Yeah.
I was listening to someone talk today. I think it was Painting Phase actually. I think it was GF on Painting Phase who actually said, I think part of it is we're just getting a lot of Space Marines now, and we know what to expect from these Primaris because they're just catching up the line. I think, yeah, fair. You might be a bit right on that, but I think 40k has parameters, and Age of Sigmar has no parameters, or much wider parameters. Like you can only do so much with existing ranges in 40k. You can't change the Eldar that much because I mean, they're great, but they are what they are. Whereas I can go, let's make frog people in Age of Sigmar. Cool. What do you want to do? Go crazy. Anyway,
There
that's
is
cool.
a much greater scope to do what they want to do and pick on this nostalgia to be able to do those two simultaneously. That's not
Yeah.
easy.
And then start of the year, first Heresy Thursday of the year, we get an
What
announcement.
an announcement it was.
The Great Slaughter, Legions Imperialis, campaign book 1. So
We
allowing
knew
you
it
to
was coming.
play. Yeah, so we're going to get loads more stuff for Legion started Solar Auxilia, but also rules to use Titan and Knight armies, which I think is a major thing.
That was a
Adding another
surprise to me.
faction, playable faction, is huge for people who don't want to play those Solar or thingy.
When I first
And
read that, I was really surprised because I knew there's loads of people who've been talking about it in various groups and chats I'm in. People were like, "I really want to do this. I want to play this as an option." I thought, "Wow, I'm really surprised that this has come in here." It kind of makes sense when I now read it. What surprised me, or sort of took that in a slightly different direction, is that it's in a specific game mode, which is a new game mode.
yeah, which is interesting.
Yeah,
And people
interesting that they feel
there's
that it's needed.
Titanicus getting worried. I don't think it's the same thing, but it does make you wonder what's going to happen, how much
Mm.
support Titanicus is going to get this year. Hopefully, it does get some, but we shall see.
Well, they
Uh,
do specifically mention Titanicus, don't they, in the article? I thought they did anyway. Yeah, there we go.
um,
Titan Death Battles are a great way to bring existing collections of Knights and Titans from Adeptus Titanicus
yeah,
back into games of Legions Imperialis. So they
just
mention it there. It's not like it's ceased to exist or anything like that.
no, it doesn't mean they're going to do anything with it.
That's fair.
Which is I think a justifiable trepidation to have.
Mm, mm.
But yeah, and it's available to pre-order later this month, so
Quite quick.
quick turnaround. And I think this is really good for the game. I think
It's badly needed for the
obviously,
game because of the range of is limited at the moment.
so I've said, and this is an old D6 generation thing that I kind of agree with, that if you release a game, and they were talking about mainly board games, but miniatures games as well, you want 4 factions because you
Mm,
want variety, and people have to identify. I want to play this. Or I don't like that style. I don't like that race. Cool. There's one for me. I think the old world only releasing with 2 straight off the bat could be a bit of a tricky. If you turn around with Bretonians, Tomb Kings, Orcs, and Dwarfs, someone can find their
mm,
space within one of those 4. Tomb Kings and Bretonians. Oh, well, I want to play Orcs. I want to play a Hawk army, but
mm,
not a skeletons crumble. I want to play a whatever. Or I think having those options, Legion's only having the 2 options, um, is a bit limited.
mm.
Allowing this as a third option is good. I also think there's Titanicus struggled at the start because you had that box game which wasn't ideal, and then it took a few months before other Titans come out and made the game more playable. We talked earlier about how Legions is the good stuff is dictated by what's available right now.
Mm,
Well, this
mm,
opens the game up. We're going to be seeing transports, like heavy
mm.
transports. We're going to be
Yeah,
seeing jet bikes, drop pods, whole new ways of deploying into the battlefield. Um, New
whole new
formations, super
formations,
heavy
detachments.
company formations. Like, yeah, put your Titan down if you've got, if they're going first and they get to fire all their shadow swords at you, like it's gonna hurt. Um, Mechanized infantry sub cohorts, artillery companies, like all of a sudden the
That's
games,
huge. Yeah.
yeah. So now, yeah, you might only have 2 factions, but you've got multiple ways to play those factions.
Mm,
And more formations added into that as well, and all that. Plus, it's coming with the campaign system to link campaigns of different games.
I think this is a surprisingly full book. When I read this,
Yeah,
I was quite surprised how much is coming in. It says there's a lot of
doesn't look
background
particularly
on
thick.
the
Like,
Beta Garmin. It
yeah,
doesn't, but from what it's described, I mean, it looks like the sort of it's not rule book size,
no,
but
no,
it's the next size down from that
yeah,
in
it
terms of these sort of
looks
standard books they
substantial.
release. Yeah,
It's
and
got
the fact
50
there's
plus
50
pages
pages. Yeah,
of background, yeah, as well.
they've never covered the Garmin cluster and
Not well, no,
Beta Garmin to that degree,
no, no, no.
in a game book before. And even the sort of sample pages are giving additional background on
Ooh,
a couple of the solar
mm.
auxilia um, cohorts. I think that's
I,
called factions.
this is
I think
interesting.
it's going to be really interesting.
the wording here. I don't know if we're just maybe reading more into it, including new formations and detachments for both loyalist and traitor forces to deploy. Now, does that mean they're generic and therefore they can both deploy them? Or is there some fun in there for Legion specifically?
I think they've.
Probably the former.
I think that's Warhammer Community not quite. I think it
Yeah,
should have
maybe.
been for both factions. I think
Yeah,
they should
maybe.
not. It shouldn't have been traitor and loyalist. It should have been
No.
solar and
I'm not going to
Astartes.
hope.
But
I'm not going to
no,
expect. But you never know.
I don't think that's where that's going. I think that's just a Warhammer Community not
And
quite.
yeah, we're talking about long narratives with extensive
Mm.
campaign system, which is cool. Linking battles, warfront campaigns, several players involved. Yeah, Titan Death game mode. Lots of
Titan Death game
cool
mode, yeah,
stuff.
and list essentially. Yeah, I think that's very cool. I think there's a chunk in there's a lot of stuff in this book, a lot of content in
Mm,
here that I'm interested in. I'm not normally super enthusiastic about campaign sections. I think it's cool and I love it for people who can do it. I just don't have the time
yeah, I mean, I don't
to
have.
put it together, or the gaming group to put it together, kind
That's
of
the thing.
really.
I think you've got to have a gaming group
But
that's
I'm still
committed.
kind of excited about to see this, particularly when I see a sort of see that. Well, I mean, what appears to be that sort of hex map suggesting map-based campaigns. You're like, yeah,
Mm,
it's quite cool actually.
cool. And then the last thing is Warhammer Heroes is back, which is
Yes,
really
it
cool.
is.
I'm really
Yes, it
glad. I didn't think
is.
it was going to come back after last year. I thought if they didn't do it last year, it wouldn't come back at all. Um, and what's interesting is the people who won their awards 4 years ago are finally going to get an opportunity to pick up those awards, which is
And
cool.
it's so bizarre, isn't it, that that was affected by world events. That was all put
Yeah.
on hold like that,
So,
which is a real shame.
I mean, you've got till 31st January. I didn't realize it was so long to start with. I thought we weren't going to cover it because it would be been and gone. Um, but they're still doing the special awards evening, including accommodation, which used to be at Warhammer Fest.
Mm,
But I don't know what they're going to do with that now going forwards. But we are. I need to nominate. I've got a couple of ideas to nominate, but I need to write them well because it's not about most people voting. It's about
mm. Sort
kind
of
of what
how
they've done.
considered the application is, and
Yeah.
ultimately what that individual or it's individuals, isn't it?
Yes. So a couple of Australians won one of the years. I can't remember their names now. Because they've run Warhammer events for a number of years as wife and husband, and they've
Mm,
each individually got an award. Yeah, you can't nominate a podcast. Not how it works. It's
hmm.
individuals.
Okay.
And what's quite interesting is like the range. Um, I saw someone saying, "Oh, it's it's all these people like influencers and whatever." It's like, well, you know, if someone's really big into the community and supporting the community through that media presence or what have you,
Mm,
then they're the kind of person who is a Warhammer hero by nature.
yes.
you know,
The point
um,
of it is how are you driving a community?
yeah. Uh, and often the people who are putting that effort into, being a social media presence are also doing other things because that's their
Mm,
character. Carl Tuttle won his for the support he put in around the fires in California and all that stuff.
mm,
Probably would have won one for the work he's done for enhancing the 40k community. Dave Witek for having a podcast that went through the dark times of Warhammer switching to Age of Sigmar when almost every other podcast stopped, or the very few that were moaning all the
mm,
time. Oh, sounds familiar. Um, and uh, and he got his for that with Alex as well. And Alex got his partly for the work he did running Adepticon events, Alex Gonzalez. Um, so I think someone like Alex, I think there must be an effective like if you've got a number of people talking about they run this club and they do this and they do that, that's going to add weight to it. But there are definitely some names out there in the heresy community.
mm.
Um, I think less based around podcasting, although yeah, okay, but definitely some events people. who've been really good at keeping things going, and there's one or two who are just super supportive as well. Let's get this right, Games Workshop. I'm going to nominate. There are certain people who are never going to get a nomination. Everyone on the threads on Twitter were hilarious. I think Valrax asked people not to nominate him, which,
Amazing.
when you're not going to win one because you're on a blacklist or whatever, it's
Yeah.
probably a good thing to say. Yeah, fair play. It's
Yeah.
quite funny as well.
Please don't use your time
Yeah,
that way. Yeah.
yeah. I don't
If
need
you were
one. I
aware.
don't need
Yeah.
one. It's like me saying, you know what? I'm just not going to run in the 100-meter final in the Olympics this year. No, not going
Yeah.
to happen. Okay. Yeah, I'm going to step back from that.
Yeah. You're choosing to let others run with this one. You're like, yeah, okay,
But
cool.
yeah, I think it's cheesy. It's a little bit. Um, it is what it is. Warhammer Heroes. Yeah, this is not an objective thing at all. It's completely subjective. Once you get through kind of the big names you've done, 'cause I want to see like people I don't know, and like, oh, this person's run this gaming club for 30 years, and there's hundreds of Warhammer players because of him or her. That kind of thing is super cool, and I think it's great that it gets recognised.
Mm,
Stuff like that as well. So
I agree. And to having something that is highlighting some of those events that might have otherwise gone completely unheard of, I think it's great to have a mechanism like that, and because that inevitably encourages people to say, actually, you know what, I'm going to give that a go. I've heard someone else's story to that. I think I could do at least a portion of that. I'm going to give that a go, and that's kind of the thing they want to celebrate, which can only be a good thing, I think.
indeed, right. Let's call that there, and then come back and chat some more.
Yes.
Okie dokie. Well, we did our demon talk last episode, and we kind of just come back to finish it off. This might be a little bit of a shorter segment. That's not a problem. We wanted to talk about models and that kind of
Yes.
thing. We did have one very cool reply on Twitter. We don't get, we're not the most, maybe I think it's partly because of the way I am, we're not the most, we don't get the most feedback, most kind of interaction in that respect. I think a lot of our listeners might kind of be a bit like think that way. It's just like cool, it's not the we'll shout you out at the end of the show kind of kind of show.
Something. I think it's something one consumes, perhaps, rather than
Yeah,
engages with. I don't think it's
engaged
an
with,
engagement kind of thing
and
necessarily.
I'm getting
Clearly, that's changing now with this range of. I
oh
mean, we're getting questions from fan of the show Dan. We're getting
again,
these posts here. Again, yes.
yeah,
It's clearly changing, and
yeah,
the momentum's with it. That said, though, this was a particularly good example.
yes,
This
absolutely.
absolutely nailed it. Yeah.
So
Sorry, carry on.
G ambulance underscore serve on the Twitters, who I think is called Graham. Can't remember exactly. It's a guy who I'm sure used to do lots of Warhammer Fantasy stuff. Was always a cool modeler, but he's shared on Twitter, so you can follow Imperial Truth. I shared it as well.
Mm,
His Demons of the Ruinstoprm collection, made from GW4 roll bits to be legal for official events. Built for first edition, has to be jiggled a bit for second edition. But some moody always helps. But we've
really
got
well taken. It's amazing actually what a good photo
yeah,
taken well can really do to elevate it. But yeah, I mean this does what I was kind of looking forward to talking about this and the sort of
yeah,
modelling options and
exactly.
taking those options and really running
He's
with them.
got he's got the Samus model in there with Chaos Warhounds
Mm,
as his beasts. I'm assuming. Yeah, in fact, as cavalry or beast, depending on what he's doing. He's using a Magath Lord, so this is from the Age of Sigmar range, as a greater demon beast with some death models, which he's kind of altered and played with. they fit the theme very well without being the same kind of models, which is really
Mm,
clever. I think because that's easy enough to be. It's easy enough to kind of get wrong. I think. And then Lesser Demons, he's got bloodletters, pink horrors, and everything. But he's one of the guys who I think's done a brilliant idea with the pink horrors, and I've seen other people do it. So the
hmm
bloodletters have got like some of the mutation sprue, basically the old Warriors of Chaos mutation sprue
mm,
on there. Some of the horrors have got tentacles. Using some gene stealer bits is quite cool idea actually. There's a Kroot, what the Narlock mouth as well,
mm,
and Tyrannid bits to make a Shrike, which I kind of did as well, with various like Plague Fly bits and other things like that. Yeah, are really cool. And then Warcry Furies, which for me, for the winged Lesser Demons, is such a great move. Again, he's using like bits from like the Demonettes and the um the old uh, mutation sprue, and then some Nurgle heads and things like that. A really nice mix of kits.
it is. It feels like he's had a really clear idea, and it happens to be something that resonates really well with what my image of Ruinstorm demons, this
Mm,
era of demons, is. It's
yes,
tending more towards that creepier. It's not just Lovecraftian; it's something else to it. It's got a certain real creepy horror version of what demons are.
definitely influenced but Warhammer's influenced by Lovecraft, like
Yes,
particularly
yes,
later on.
absolutely. But it's just got a particular look. I mean, even
Yeah, it's
doing things. I
Warhammer,
mean, just
Warhammer Lovecraft.
yeah, but it's also it's more than that because it's taking. Yeah, okay, maybe it's that sort of blanch. So, but I mean, taking the eyes off things,
Yes, which
smoothing
I was
over
going to
those.
say on the horrors, he's covered over the eyes, which I've
Perfect.
seen more than one person do. And I've seen some
Yes,
people do it really smooth, so it looks a little bit alien-esque, and
yes.
it's fantastic. It looks so good on horrors. I just can't be bothered to put the effort in. Which I'm sure
Particularly
for someone good at it, doesn't take
when
too
you
much effort. But
when you extend them with, as you say, with like tentacles and
mm,
gribbly bits, which appears to be a mix of Sylvaneth and Tyrannid bits on there as well.
yeah,
It just
it gets
takes it that bit further.
they become the formless demons you read about. Like
Yeah,
like you can identify them as being Zinchian without them shouting "I'm Zinchian" at you.
but they're almost like a proto version of it. I mean,
Yeah,
there's there where he uses that. He's used a more, but I don't know where that more has come from on one of the
that is.
bloodletters,
I'm
which just looks.
pretty sure. Let me get onto Warhammer. I still type in Games Workshop because it's quicker than looking through all the other Warhammer type uh, things I've got. Let me deal with the Warhammer website. Um,
Oh, delightful setup that that is.
do you know what? I used it the other day to go and look at something, and I wasn't that bad, except for the fact that I'm like, oh yes, I have to press shop. Um,
Mm,
there's a few things that just annoy me, but I know what I'm looking for. So, Maggot King of Nurgle. Here we go. We are looking at where can I find you, you little monkeys? Here we go. So you got Bloab Rot Spawn, Ogorot's Demon Spew. These came out. Here we go. Ogorot's Demon Spew. These came out with the End Times,
mm,
and they're the champions riding these, big mouths in the bellies
mm.
kind of creatures. They're those, um, which are super cool. And yeah, Morbidax Twiceborn was the other one as well. There's a kit that makes three of them, I think. So, there's loads of stuff temporarily out of stock there. Okay. But yeah, I think what's amazing is they don't all look the same. Like there's not, there are definite, you
No,
can tell that there's different rules being used for the models, but they do fit the grim dark. Like they have that the same as feel to them across the whole army,
they do, and
which
I
is
mean, even
which is the
it's
challenge,
almost
I
got. Yes, it is, and a very difficult one, I think, to achieve. And it's even got. I was just looking at the image he's got with those vampire models as the brutes with the maggot thing, the maggot lord as the heavy behind them. It's
think.
got that's almost got a doom like feel to it, where you have the sort of
Yeah.
shambler, or quake, that kind of stuff, where you've got the shambler and the different types of demon, but it's got that cohesive feel to it. Amazing
Yes.
what painting, a color scheme, and consistent basing can
I
do to
also
tie it all together. I think it's a superb
I think
example.
also using Games Workshop models.
Mm.
I think
Which
there's
have a certain aesthetic. I agree.
yeah, I think there's an element of that. So my problem was always when people. I think this was more of a problem in first ed Demons, where stuff was on like 100, 130 mil bases was like big. I don't
Mm.
think you need to go as big as that anymore. And I'm going to rebase some of my stuff just because the bases are so big on them. They're cool, but um, I think it just creates a bit of a problem with the second ed book and with the way Heresy plays now. So I'm going to rebase some of mine. But um, he's managed to achieve what is say was hard back then was trying to find really big models and really small models that fit
Mm.
well together. So when when people ask like, oh, I'm going to do a demon army, I want to do it slightly differently. What what models can I use? And I saw people saying night haunt models like ghostly models can be a really cool demon aesthetic. But once you go above brute size, just
Mm.
what cavalry have they got? What big monsters have they got? Not many. Like you can't get the Mongol anymore from Forge World.
No.
Um, right, and then go and find another range that fits within that. Like quite hard to do.
Mm.
Sylvaneth was similar, although I think now with the size reduction on bases, you can get away with having the treeman and things like that, and having them as the bigger beasts. I don't think you need to go. Maybe the Lord of War, you might struggle. It might not quite fit as well, but the sovereigns and things like that could easily just be treeman sized. Um,
It is helpful that Games Workshop has that sort of format of things on the what used to be 28 mil bases and or 25 mil bases,
mm,
now typically 32s. The sort of infantry. Most of the ranges have like an infantry, a sort of an elite heavy infantry, which is
mid-sized, yeah,
typically 3 to a box.
yeah,
Here with a G ambulance services examples, he's gone with those vampires. But I thought that you mentioned Night Haunt, you could do the Ossiarch Bone Reaper. There's a middle sized thing there that's that size. As you say, it gets slightly trickier when it gets to bigger. Sylvaneth are quite handy, as you say. You've got the Treeman,
yeah.
and you've got
And
there's something
brutes,
else as well with
the
them as well. But it's getting that certain look. And there's a brilliant example actually of Sylvaneth in Warhammer World. There was in the example a super dark, like a grim fairy tale version
right.
of Sylvaneth, super sinister, real horror. It was all around like a child being
Sure.
stolen, snatched by tree spirits, and she got utterly converted, and then
So
vengeful spirits and stuff. Real
mm,
good inspiration for that type of demon.
I think Grant could
Yeah,
also use. I think it's again. Apologies if it's not. Could
mm,
use the actual brute models in there if you wanted to as well. A lot more expensive, but
yeah,
they would fit within that.
they would.
So for me, so my Corn Demon army has bloodletters. It has if I want a cavalry, it's juggernauts. I use flesh hounds as the beasts. I use the furies from Warcry as my winged lesser demons. Uh, the problem I could use bloodthirsters, but they're not quite as dark and aesthetic as I would want
No, I
in
agree.
that army. I can use the brutes as the brutes because they look quite cool anyway. And then for the bigger stuff, because I'm doing classical demons, classical like corn demons also fit with like biblical demons. That kind of
Mm,
traditional look. Um, that you might see around, although there are loads of traditional demon looks demons, but you know what I mean, like the fires of hell demons, the Diablo demons, um, and Mercia Miniatures do a range of big models, lots of big models that are classic. I think they call them Inferni, which are
mm.
big demonic models, and they fit so well within that range. And I went to Forge World and I got a few bits as well, and what have you, that they work as a line. I was like, cool, I can do everything from this. The only thing that I really struggled with was swarms, and now I'm doing baby juggernauts. Um, but everything at every size level now, something fits within that idea. I think it's easier to do now within one range, as we were saying. Chaos have a lot of options to go crazy within that, and I like this style, and obviously, depending on what kind of force you want, do you want it to be Nurgle themed? Nurgle again have got lots of big models. You're
Mm,
quite well set with Nurgle for that kind of thing. Lynch has the ability to go. Oh, Zinch and Nurgle. Nurgle was always the one for the sculptors, right? And the
hmm
painters, they always love Nurgle. Zinch can be very similar because you can just tuck tentacles on and weird stuff in weird
mm.
places and have this kind of thing. Takes a bit more work maybe than maybe Slanesh and Khorne do in that respect.
I
If you
think
want to
it's.
maintain that,
I think this idea of mixing the different traditional demons, but making them work as a unified whole because they kind of can in the Ruinstorm thing. So, which we see here, where
mm,
you've got this great big shambling demon using a Nurgle beast as a basis for that, working just as well alongside much more live, dangerous looking, sort of whipcord thin, fast. The Herald here, which is using the Fury, the Warcry Fury in the base,
yeah,
to get all that to work together as a cohesive whole is a challenge, but entirely achievable, as
yes,
this
I
proves.
think it is.
And then it's interesting how it then makes you look at existing models very differently. I'm not a huge fan of Samus. I never have. Just don't
No,
particularly like that sort of
I'm with you on that.
fires of hell style version of thing. But yet, seeing it here in these photos alongside those chaos beasts, the hounds in this case, you're like, oh, actually, I think he might have repositioned it slightly to make him slightly more like in a bounding, like
Yeah,
I'm about to leap forward thing rather than the slightly more elaborate prose that he's in as a stock model. It makes me look at that model very differently, and I prefer it as part of this whole. It's making me look
mm,
at certain kits. I mean, even the idea of just getting a bunch of boxes, getting bloodletters, pink horrors, dryads, and chaos spawn, and going nuts with how you might fit it together and get them to look as a cohesive whole is quite appealing. I've never been interested in doing a Demon's Army. I'm looking at that going, I wonder.
yeah,
But like you say, I think it is easier now than it was when Demons of the Ruinstorm were first introduced. I mean, there's quite a few now of that sort of mid-size thing, the sort of brute equivalent that I think is easier than it once was.
yeah.
You've got slam gore things that I'm just looking through the GW website now. There's cavalry. There's all sorts of things that you could use as a basis for that. Bigger models, I think, are slightly more problematic, slightly more challenging. But then you got a load of
Yeah, they
plastic
are.
demon. You got a load of plastic greater demons
Yeah,
now, as you say, you can use as a base. So,
and you've got your Angrons and your Primarchs as well, and
mm,
uh, yeah, you have. As I say, I don't think they need to be quite as big, and you're not having quite as many that are as big either, which I think is
mm,
a large factor in that. But the other advantage is I think you kind of have to have an idea of the aesthetic before you start
mm.
what you want to achieve, because
I agree with that. I think that would
then you're
hugely
looking
help.
through
Yeah.
that. Because I mean, like, so you got the four classic Chaos Gods. Um, you've got this formless kind of thing, which is kind of an element of what we're seeing there. But you can have a mechanical. You could go
Mm,
like death. Like, there's no reason why you can go to that Bone Reaper's range and use a
mm,
lot of different weird stuff. Like skeletons could be creepy, horrible. I
mm,
wouldn't necessarily take them straight as they were, but there's options within that to utilize going forwards. You can go more down the Cthulhu kind of madness, like even more than like, is it? Can it just be a blob, like with
oh, this. Well, I mean,
almost a
that's all.
beholder without an eye, that kind of
Yeah,
thing. Like,
I
just as long
think
as
you could really go and look at some artistic references, get a sort of an idea in your head of a theme, and then find the GW models that support that. And I only say GW just because the range is so large. It's tempting to kind of go looking at.
oh
I mean, those who are going to be tempted to go looking down the STL ranges and 3D designers that have got models that way, they're going to kind of do that anyway.
yeah, and
It's just this is about this kind of that's limitless. Whereas it's quite
it
nice
is,
to look
but
across the palette here.
I still think you need to be considering like the overall feel and aesthetic of the whole army.
Mm, mm,
I mean, I'm just flicking through Mercia Miniatures, who there's a mix of models there. Some of my favourite models. There's some amazing models on this site, and a lot that aren't. But they do a whole Beastman kind of force. You could almost have something like that. You could have. There's no reason why you couldn't go down kind of corrupt, real like overly corrupted Space Marines and turn them into like demons that have been possessed and things like that, and turn dreadnoughts into other things, and like bikers into cavalry, uh, and do something like that, and really, of course, just painting them ghostly, a little bit of a weak source option. But if you're the kind of person who go to town on that, then there's stuff you could do within that. But I think you need to have that cohesive kind of I know what I'm looking for, and you might not necessarily start with that. You might find what might happen is you find the one model, the one unit, and go, oh, I like that. Therefore, I am going to make an army, and that's going to be my inspiration how to go through. Um, what? There's I don't know, there's just a myriad of ways. I'd love to see a kind of some more mechanical demons. I was trying to remember. There was a brilliant one at one of my Cardiff events, and I cannot quite remember exactly what it was made of. Like there was GW stuff in there, and they'd all had work done on them, but it it was just the whole field. There was models there that I hadn't seen from, I don't think I've ever seen again, that that came through. But there's you can have just weird, like almost a mythical beasts kind of army where everything is like, these kind of dog things with beaked mouths, and like they could be your brutes. And the key thing is to bear in mind you don't want it to be confusing for your opponent. So if your lesser demons are all equipped the same way and take the same kind of rules, then maybe you keep them the same going forwards for all the different rule sets, for all the different units. In your beasts and your cavalry, similar size kind of style or bases. Make sure they're identifiable as beasts in cavalry, and don't like conflate that too much. There's Creaturecaster is a really good option actually for some of the bigger models. When GW didn't have big, impressive Greater Demons, Creaturecaster were putting out big, impressive Greater Demons. But they've expanded their range a lot since those days. I mean, yeah, Plague Angels, and there's obvious mixes like on that kind of thing. But there is like Void Elementals and stuff like that. Yeah, you could go into like spirits, and they have got some cool mechanical stuff as well. Actually, you can even looking at Privateer Press for certain things. Some of their undead, it's a definite style, and you have to be happy with that. But they're what are they called? The Undead Warjacks in Privateer Press. The kind
Cricks.
of tricks. There are certain models within that which I think are really cool. Trying to get on there now to have a little look. So much. It's been a long time since I looked at any Privateer Press stuff. That is for sure. Cricks is um, the only faction from War Machine I would even consider playing. To be fair,
I've actually got a couple of cases of them,
have you?
which I bought secondhand many years ago, and I keep meaning to move on and never quite managing to do so.
Sure.
Never quite bring
Yeah.
myself to do it. But yeah, I mean,
Cr-
it is remarkable actually the inspiration of demons. As you say, going down the 3D printed type of route, I would only tend to go down that route if someone produced a complete range with a sort of singular vision, which some people are doing now, not
mm,
specifically for Ruinstorm, but you see people doing. Well, I'm going to design an army. Sign up to my Patreon, and you'll get the army, all the options for it. I've seen people doing that for sort of Age of Sigmar factions and similar things that are sort of very obvious counts as. but their particular take on it as a designer model. But that's fine. It's just taking you down a certain route. You either have to have someone print that or be comfortable printing yourself and doing everything else. I think that is not nearly as accessible. We've discussed 3D printing before and about what that might go, or what the state of that is currently, and the idea of kit bashing, as you say, and I think having that uniformity of look. If you're not going to go down that route, that is still achievable within the wide range of GW kits that are available, and how
Yeah.
you bring those together into something. I think that's entirely achievable, and arguably, it's an entirely subjective point of view, but arguably easier.
Well, I don't think it's arguably easier. I think it's probably, you could state it as being easier. I'm just having a little look through. I think Age of Sigmar has a lot of options.
Mm.
And again, it just depends how much work you want to do. At the end of the day, you can just grab your plastic demons, and
Mm.
just use them as basically my blood letters are blood letters. My flesh
Mm.
hounds are flesh hounds. Like a hounds, it's cool. It works. Um, what I could see someone utilizing certain ranges and grabbing mega gargants for like their Lord of
Mm.
War, and doing enough to them because there's a lot of options within the kit anyway.
Mm.
But utilizing them in a way that make them fit in, a head swapper, or what have you, going on with that. If you take ogres and mega gargants, and you had a good idea to make them stand out in some way. I don't quite know. Nurglify them. Like again, like you could easily have these kind of humanoid things, which you could have a lot of fun with if you're into sculpting and kit bashing and modifying in that way.
Mm.
There's a huge amount that could be done with those.
Yeah, and there are some really inspirational extremes that you can get there. There was one I think was doing the rounds on a tournament circuit where there was a guy who sort of liberally used a glue gun
Yeah.
and had created some truly otherworldly creations, which were still recognizable
Mm.
demon forms, but they were real sort of nightmarish type stuff and real realm of chaos era type of bizarre creations. So you can look at the extremes. Don't have to go that far with it, but you could use that as inspiration to even do fairly straightforward things. I mean, simple head
Yeah.
swaps, as we said, smoothing over certain details is not like taking the eyes out of things it can create a whole look in itself.
Big time.
Skeletons with different heads and things. Sylvaneth range change all the heads to skulls on those. You've got a very particular type of demon there. Even
Yeah.
things with just distended mouths and stuff can all give you that creepy horror based version of what demons might want to be. It's about just having that vision. I think is
Yes.
a higher likelihood of getting you something that you might find successful or achieving what you're setting out to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, really interesting. Actually, this is all dangerously inspiring as I
I mean,
scroll through
it
various
is.
Google image searches here.
It's been heightened since playing my demons in second ed. That
Mm.
I might want a second demon army at some point.
Mm.
Uh, and how would I go about it, and what would I do? And I'm certainly not um, kind of thinking specifically about anything, but I've kind of I've got an eye out looking at different stuff, and I'm not a sculptor, and I'm not going to spend the time doing that, learning it and all that. But yeah, I was just looking at the mega garments and the ogres, and I was thinking, yeah, if you covered over the eyes, like just green stuffed over so they were smooth on all your mega gargants and ogres, and then added on some, I don't know, tentacles, roll some green stuff up into a tube and thin it out at one end. Like I've done that before, and wasn't that difficult for me. And I'm
Mm.
terrible. And then all of a sudden you could have like these shambling, like tentacled, like no hands on them, like kind of creatures with stuff coming out of them and what have you, and yeah, dig into bits boxes and stuff. The which death range was I just looking at? The fleshy courts of potential in there.
Oh yeah,
Like,
because that's expanded recently, hasn't it?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And the new stuff like could really be very cool with some of that. And again, you've got a nice range of sized of models and things like that.
Mm.
There's a lot of options out there for demons, which you don't need to go. I say the beauty of it is you don't need to go and do that. You can do it all well within the demon lines. But I think there are simple ways of going beyond that.
Mm.
But we shall see. Anything else to add on demons and modelling and painting? And
No, I think that gives a flavour of it without going into that. But I think we are in a period. I mean, it's refreshing, actually, quite exciting, having this conversation and then going and having a look and realizing we're a long way from where we were, as you say,
oh,
in version one, a very long way. And I hadn't actually realized until we're having this conversation quite how far
I think they
the
made it
range
easier.
has pushed it. They've made it so much easier.
Yeah, so I've got two Bellicors that are on their bases stuck on a 130 mil base because that's how big like the old like characters used to be. Yeah, Bellicor's a fantastic model because it's demon agnostic as well, so you can utilize it in a lot of different ways. I've got two of them. I've got all the Mercia miniature stuff. I've got Carbander up there, all fit within that. But there are so many more options that are Bellicor sized, and he fits on his 100 mil base or whatever it is
Mm.
really well. Right, and there are just so many models in GW, not many in stock from looking at the website. But that's a
Indeed, they do
different
seem
issue.
to be that.
Or they're
Although
struggling. But
certain things are starting trying to get back in
yeah,
place.
there are just, as you say, they're just the combination of the change in the way that the bases and the rules and things fit a little bit nicer. I think in that because the rules are less powerful. Like some of the other stuff felt like it had to be big because they
Mm.
were big imposing stat lines as much as anything else. Um, if you went a kind of Necron Adeptus Mechanicus kind of mash up and wanted to do more mechanical stuff, like you could utilize knights, you could utilize like the armigers and all that kind of thing into some weird like you could mix knights and mega gargants, and if you wanted a really weird cool Lord of War, and yeah, there's a lot of options within that. I would What I would do probably, so if I was going to do a second demon army, I would look through the book to see what kind of army I want, decide on a
Mm.
decide on the dominion, and then find the right way to pick that.
Mm.
The other option, which I won't do because I've got the corn already, so I've got my demon army, which I really like. It's cool. My one would be for a different game experience. If I was like, oh, the other way I think is to go, oh wow, that range, that specific model, I want to do an army of that with this
Mm.
idea. Okay, how do I then build that army? What can I use to make an army? I think that
Mm.
those are the two approaches that I would look at. You either get attracted by the idea, the line of miniatures, the specific miniature that you want to use, and then build the army utilizing those models, or you look at it and go, right, how can I represent what I'm doing with that?
Mm.
Um, yeah, but yeah, so there are lots and lots of options.
There are far more than I had realised. So it would be if it's something that interests people and has interested people in the past, I would highly recommend going and having a look around again because I think you'd be surprised, as I have been, quite how much is out there
Yes,
now.
and let us know um, if you do,
Yeah, would
and what your
love to
thoughts are
see
on
other
what you
examples
have.
like that that Graham kindly, if it is indeed Graham, shared with us because that was really quite inspirational.
Yeah, super cool. Awesome. Right, let's take another break. Okie dokie. So we are sort of at the start of the year. Just a little bit late. It's all good. It's all good fun. We are going to look back a little bit on 2023 and look forward to 2024, both within GW and personally. Just because why not? It's a recap episode kind of thing. Some people do because we record at the start of the month or get out at the start of the month. It had to be January rather than December because it's a whole month missed. So 2023 for Heresy. Can you give me a highlight? I've got a few written down.
A highlight
So
within GW or personally?
No, this is GW. Like what has been provided to us from GW in the Heresy? Should we go with a model? Give me a model or box set.
It's very tempting to go with the Mark III. That
It was on my list.
It was that one for me as a distinct. That was the one that is sticking in my mind as a definite contender. That's the one that immediately jumped out for me. Ooh, individual models, sort of individual releases. I'm not so sure, but that one. It's interesting that one jumps out more than say. Does the Assault Squad count as 23?
Yeah.
It just about does, doesn't it? No,
Yeah,
I think it's the Mark III for me. That was quite a big deal for me.
Partly because of what it represents as well. Like, chances are we're getting Mark IV rescaled as well. Like, I might have to go and sell some Mark IV. I sold some Mark III for a nice profit. Because I've still got some to sell, I think, actually, because I want the new bigger ones. They fit with the Mark VI better as well. So yeah, the Mark III were definitely up there. Fulgrim was an option just because I can't believe how good that model is. But things like the Space Wolf Praetor, I mean, there's maybe. Do you think next year we should do a review of the releases, like independent characters do, basically a month by month kind of look back at what was released and pick out?
I think that might not be a bad idea because actually it's tempting to think that that's an enormous amount of stuff to cover, but I suspect actually it isn't, particularly not if you lock it into a specific game. I mean, Heresy now covers quite a few different games, and arguably that as a theme, I quite like that as a theme, as a highlight for 2023, but you could limit it.
Maybe this year we'll try and keep a record. Like, I'm telling you that because you might have to do this. We'll create a document and we'll try and go through it and do releases.
I think we could. That wouldn't be that difficult to track. Yeah, I think it would be possible.
But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to remember what we've had, because this is the thing. Like, what came out this year, what came out last year, that kind of thing. We've had like the tank commanders dudes, like the expensive dudes sticking out the top of tanks. What else have we had? They say
that was not. That was. I would say that's the opposite of a highlight.
Yeah, and the weapons upgrade sprue thing, the combat upgrade sprue, that kind of stuff. But we have had things like the Space Wolf Praetor, the Traitor Champion. I just think is an amazing model. Some really good stuff, some cool characters. Yeah, there's but for me, I think Mark III Fulgrim definitely up there.
Yeah,
and to be honest, actually, potentially just some of the Legion stuff, like building some of those tanks, like the Kratos goes together so well for so many parts. Like, some of the tanks are amazing.
Yes.
We haven't had a direwolf in plastic yet, have we?
We have not, and that will be a delight to have that.
Oh yeah, I sold my two resin ones
plastic
because they were unbuilt. I was like, I'm having the plastic one. Thank you very much.
Yes, I've got a couple of those that could do with going the same way. But yeah, I agree. I'm trying to actually.
So what else?
Just sort of flicking through it now. I'm trying to work out what came in 23 now.
Cathonia with the rules for so we had two books. We had Cathonia, and then we had the collection of it's not chapter approved, the missions and the units. What was that book even called? I can't remember.
Siege of Cathonia.
No, Siege of Cathonia, and then the book with Fulgrim in and the Corrupted.
Oh, Exemplary Battles 1.
Exemplary Battles, that's the word. Yeah. So we've had 2 releases for
Yeah.
Heresy within that. Panicus had nothing. Legions eventually came out. Cathonia generally pretty well received. Like, background was good. I haven't read it all yet. I still need to get around to doing that. But was received well in that it shone a light on something people didn't know about as much. These Mortalis rules and
Those
Inducti.
have gone down surprisingly
Yeah,
well. And yeah, I've heard
Cathonia
a
went
lot of
down really
people speak
well.
highly about that. Yeah.
Yeah, the Exemplary Battles book didn't go down well.
No. And I think we touched on that when we did
Yeah,
cover it. I mean, just
I
saying it's
think
tricky, very difficult prospect to release stuff that you've previously released
we're going to get another
as a
one.
free.
I wonder how they,
Or
or 2 at least,
yeah, I
more
was
would
going to
have
say
thought.
there's going to be a several. I would have thought, but yeah.
I wonder if they change their approach and what else they put with it.
Hmm.
But Cathonia, I think Cathonia surprised a lot of people with kind of how good it was, which is cool. And hopefully we're going to get another campaign book like
Hmm.
that this year, and we'll get into that in a minute. Legions came out eventually.
Legions would be my highlight if we extend it beyond the sort of
Sure.
the 28 mil thing. I would say
Yeah.
Legions was. I mean, that personally for me was always going to be the one that was going to excite me probably the most
We
of
are
all of those.
we are a heresy podcast, so
Yeah,
it covers
covers
everything.
all the things. Yeah,
It covers everything.
yeah. That was always going to be the one that I was going to go in with both feet wholeheartedly, and that has been the case. It's a sort of a shame that it stumbled in the way that it did in terms of that, but then did it because it all just came in one go. It just was delayed, and I had plenty to be going on with. That's fine,
Yeah.
and we just got it all talked about. But it's so nostalgic for me as a thing when you start thinking back to the artwork that was all there before, all the background and stuff that came with it. It's a hell of a game system, and I think just suits my idea of what wargaming is and the types of game I enjoy particularly. So that was probably the biggest highlight, even more so than the 28 mil stuff.
If it had come out with when it was supposed to come out, we wouldn't have talked about it much because I was in
No,
hospital, so it wouldn't have
yes, fair
happened
point. Yeah,
at all.
it would have been we
So
would have missed it.
it's all part of the fun. So yeah, I think it was a decent year for Heresy. You know, I think we got enough kind of thing. I'd like obviously we got one thing we did get was a roadmap. Like the first
I
time
was
we've
going to say,
had
and I wasn't sure if that
anything
was a
like
bit of
that.
a cop out choice,
No,
but I agree with you. I think the roadmap is significant because
I
not
think it
all of the game
whitens
systems got that.
down a few other people's. Like there are some people who are prone to thinking the worst,
Mm,
and I think it quietened down quite a few of those voices. I think, yeah, it generates that, oh, we know what's coming, so where are the surprises kind of thing. It's like, well, actually, there were a few surprises, but, some people are never happy at the end of the day,
mm,
whatever. But I think the roadmap helps. We're basically halfway through that roadmap
mm,
because of the way they do it. So we'll get another one again, hopefully May, whatever they replace Warhammer Fest with, or Warhammer Fest. So it'll be cool. Hopefully we'll do that again. And there was enough. Oh, we got the knights, like the
mm.
knight lancers in plastic. Like, that's a big release. You know, like there's some cool stuff that we got. We've yet to get the solar yet, but I say we'll get into that. But yeah, I think it was a decent year for maybe not AT per se, but for for heresy, for
No,
mainline
80 is
heresy.
tricky because without them releasing another Titan, releasing the odd weapon here and there is about as good as it's going to get. So 80 is in a funny place for that, as you say,
I
a
mean,
second
do
edition
we
or
get
an
any
update
books?
edition.
I think for me, I just really
I
want
think we
that.
got the consolidated campaign. That was about it.
Yes, we did. Yes, which is all right.
And we got some weapons. We got the conversion beamers.
Yeah, and they will.
We got the new
Yeah,
Warhammer weapons.
yeah, and I think they're going to have an effect on the game, which is cool. Um, yeah,
I think the pace of releases has been okay as well. I think it's very tempting for people who are passionate about it to say, "Oh, it's not enough." Well, actually, is it? Because
oh,
I'm just scrolling back through Warhammer Community here to try and look at what's been released this year, and there has been.
but
I mean,
we
there's
also
plastic tank kits, and jet bikes even came this year.
Yes, no
which is a
regular
very
one.
cool kit. I mean, people were desperate for those. Yeah, okay. There's always more stuff. People would as soon as they release breaches, that's going
Yeah,
to be a great place to be. Having certain infantry sets
I think the
available
only
really sort
so
of round out big
the
heresy. But
yeah, I think the only negative thing I'm going to talk about is I mentioned it a few minutes ago was lack of stock. Uh,
mm,
there appears to be an issue around manufacturing
mm,
that is greater than just they put a new system in the warehouse and it's not working. It
mm,
appears because it's, say, Age of Sigmar, I just looked at that Nurgle stuff and half of it was out of stock. You go to
mm,
40k, and load of stuff's out of stock. You go to Heresy and the bikes went out of stock and never came back in. Legions went out of stock and hasn't come back in. Like,
mm.
you struggle to find aspects of it.
Legions in particular has been difficult since release.
Yeah,
It sold out pretty quickly
there's
within
talk.
the day, and there's talk now of, I mean, things like the Thunderhawk go out of stock within
Yeah,
minutes of it being made available again. So yeah, it does
but it's
suggest that they're not
there's
quite keeping up with demand. But yeah,
there's
okay.
talk of the old world, like um, independents asking for copies and being told you're going to get like one or two, that kind of
Mm,
thing. I don't know how true that is, but I can believe it because of and people are like, oh yeah, they don't care about the old world. Oh, I think there's issues within that as well, that
mm,
certain people maybe don't have the confidence in the game and it's not coming out the way we were kind of led to believe it would. But
mm,
it's a bigger issue than that. It's, that might be an aspect for sure. Don't get me
mm,
wrong, but when they can't keep Space Marine stuff in stock, like did did someone make an error with the way they did the new warehouse?
mm,
Is it just that they've grown quicker than they thought they would and these things take long, or were there other issues which I've heard rumblings that it was maybe slightly less of just a miscalculation, but um, I think that is the biggest problem that GW have at the moment, regardless of anything else,
mm,
is
mm.
getting stock to people.
Particularly when they've got well, they all have had for several years, quite a voracious
Mm.
release schedule, and
Yeah,
as a
yeah,
result,
and this is the
you
problem, right?
move on, don't you? Your excitement moves on, and you're on to the next thing, and then suddenly the thing that you wanted people to be excited about and those impulse purchases have gone. So you're kind of missing out on sales there, and
And I,
people get frustrated and go, "I'm not going to support that anymore," and
yeah,
I'm not interested in that anymore. I think heresy
and
could be susceptible to that.
and I think there's an issue where GW can't stop the wheel. They can't stop the
Mm,
ride because if they turn around and said, right, we're going to have a month where there's very few releases or really
mm,
slow down, like one or two things here or there, then investors will be like, why?
what?
Like,
Mm,
what? Is there a problem? And then, that's all. Markets are all about confidence and things like that.
mm,
And maybe we'll see, because end of this month we should have had investors report, January. I mean, they did very well. They gave out a big bonus again at the end of the year.
mm.
So yeah, they're doing all right. Licensing might be down a little bit, but hey, they'll make that up, I'm sure. But yeah, also I think fans would then moan. Like I think for all the moaning about the pace of releases,
Mm,
you have a quiet couple of months and them try to catch up, and people will be like, oh, where's our new stuff?
mm,
So
mm.
like they've almost created a rod for their own back, but do they need to be putting more machines in? Is that something that's happening? Who knows? Like, we can only find out so much.
Which they must be cautious of. I mean, the lead times on these
Mm,
products being sort of multiple years is problematic, as you say. I mean, also trying to predict which things are going to be successful and which aren't, particularly in this era of scalpers, frankly, where people who have no interest in it whatsoever are just buying stuff speculatively to sell on at a
yeah,
higher price.
I think it's
It
more than
can be
just
skewing things. Well, I just because of what I'm saying about that, because I mean I've had lengthy conversations with the owner of our local gaming store, and he was saying, I'm really struggling to predict what's successful and what isn't. And he took
yeah.
me into his stockroom, and he had 70 lions there,
All right.
because that had been insanely popular. He then stocked up when it eventually came back into stock, and the enthusiasm for it had completely gone. and he
I
was just
think
left with loads of Vindicators was another one.
I think
Durelios
that's a
was another one.
problem.
You think,
Sorry, I think that's a problem caused by
mm,
manufacturing issues because
yes,
you know I've got 100 of one, I've got 100 of something, I've got 120 people who want it, 20 people can't get it. Those 20 people are very loud about not
yes,
getting it, so you get 100 more in, you sell 20.
mm,
So
mm,
it fundamentally comes down to GW have a problem with production, like,
yes, it does.
and
Mm,
have they just underestimated their growth? Did they not get enough machines? It costs money, obviously, and all that stuff.
mm,
How much they push, but they obviously need to do something drastically to increase production because you can't have basic lines that are unavailable for so long. The old world's got
mm.
metal models coming. Like, I'm not doing metal models. It's not happening. I will kit
I'm
bash. I will
amazed.
3D print. I will do other stuff. I think again that's partly a confidence issue, but is it potentially a production issue as well in that they've gone, we haven't got the plastic molding time to create
Mm.
those? Um,
I'm amazed that they've made that decision. I thought they would be against
I think they were. I think
that for
if you,
so long.
I think, well, yeah, where's there's no mention of Kislev anymore. Like when
Mm,
the old world was talked about, oh, Kislev's coming to um,
mm,
Total War Warhammer 3. They don't talk about Kislev anymore. They showed us concept sketches of Kislev. Kislev
mm,
doesn't get mentioned. It looks like Kislev's been put on the back burner. Um,
mm.
the production issue is one thing. Anyway, let's move on. 2024, we've started it tentatively. What are you hoping for? What are you expecting, and what are you hoping for? Have you got any expectations to see from this year beyond? Obviously, we've seen a solar auxiliar um, model now, so that's Secret Army. We kind of all knew it was coming as that.
Mm,
Looks
mm.
like that's coming this year.
I'm
Um,
personally not super enthused by that at
okay,
that scale. um,
sure.
so that's not going to be the highlight for me. I'm hoping for, and I think it's a reasonable assumption that there's going to be more of those infantry kits coming for full size heresy. I mentioned them earlier. I think some breaches would be great. That to me is a very heresy, a strong heresy aesthetic. For that, I think some more another book in the vein of Siege of Cathonia would be great,
Yeah,
rather
I
than
think there
Exemplary
needs to be
Battles.
at least one campaign book a year and
Yeah,
one
I
other.
agree.
I
I
think
think
that would
more
be
than that
ideal,
is unrealistic. I think one of
probably.
those, and then other books of other variety would, because that would just follow the method of this year. Um, would I like to see another box similar to the Legion Battle Group? Because I think the Legion Battle Group was a very well considered and well put together
Yeah.
offering. I think I'd quite like to see something along those lines. Um,
Well,
Again, where most people playing the game could benefit from picking up a box like that, or even, and then it also provides a brilliant intro for people who aren't in the game and have been curious previously. I
uh,
think something like that would be quite fun.
yeah. So what's interesting with the old world is they haven't got a starter box, and this is what
Mm,
caused confusion at Warhammer World, at Warhammer Fest, was they said no starter box. And a starter box is two armies and all the stuff you need to play a game and learn the rules and what have you. What they've done is given out um, a Bretonian army box and a Tomb King army box with the rule book in it, so an individual can buy an army of reasonable point level and can
mm.
play. So and there's no wastage in that. That's their army, and it goes. Not a starter box. It's an army box to start. You know what I mean? Uh,
I think that's a better form of a starter box, frankly.
I I yes and no. I think for games like the old world where you've
Spot on. That's what I
probably
was going to
got
qualify. You're right. Yeah.
a more experienced core of gamers, but you've also
Yes.
got people who already own models, that it's a better way forwards.
Agreed.
Um, I think it's a really good way forwards. The battle group kind of sort of worked in a similar way, in
Yes.
that it's a way of getting an army for one person. You don't have to split that box. You can buy that box and utilize it all really
Yes.
well. So I wonder if there's going to be a move towards that with the larger specialist games. which I think would be a really good idea. The starter sets are still amazing for 40k and stuff because you buy it as a family,
Yes,
right? And two
agreed.
siblings, you learn how to play the game. You're
It's
not fully
a
invested into one army.
no.
The
It's a
army box is a more
variation as
measured
well.
choice.
It's a
Yeah,
variation on your Space Crusades, which I
yeah,
mean, how many
absolutely.
people do you hear of our age who came in through those? It's a variation on the board game. And there are
Yeah,
board games as well. I agree completely. The wider appeal type games, really the headline games of 40k, Age of Sigmar, yes, but those where you've perhaps got a player base that's got that bit more experience or a bit more longevity with it. I think a single army
I
starter
think
box, and I think
legions
the
could.
Legion battle group work well.
Yeah, I think Legion Imperialis could have benefited from a Space Marine starter and a Solar Auxilia starter. I think there might be an issue with how many Solar Auxilia starters they sell compared to Space Marine ones,
Yes.
Legion ones. But uh, the forces in that box have confused people a little bit.
Particularly as it's difficult
You can't make a legal
to
army.
field them as a single
Yeah,
army. Then they've had to release a special formation that can't be used. It has to be used with permission. That sort of stuff. It gets a bit, as you say, that gets a bit confused. Look at Titanicus. Titanicus's starter box is still one of the best value
mm.
propositions for a starter box that there is, and that actually works particularly well because you can play it as two, split it down the middle and have a little thing, and or take it yourself and have actually a very
Mm.
useful starting point.
And for years now, the 40k Age of Sigmar like army boxes at Christmas, like the 40k ones, just sell out immediately, pretty
Mm,
much, because they're good value. And that is, yeah, I think we will get another one. I think they'd be stupid not to do something like that in
mm.
the build up to Christmas. Um, not
I think
necessarily as close.
I still get quite excited about those as well. And like I
Yeah,
say, I think it's infantry in that scale of game. In terms of legions, um, kind of similar, I suppose. I mean, because the thing is, legions could become absolutely enormous with the
yeah.
amount of stuff that you can include in it. The range could become huge. There's no one thing I'm thinking, yep, that is
I
going to
think
do it for me. What we've seen already, having that as a completed game or
mm,
a more complete and rounded game is one of the things I'm looking forward to. And it looks like we're going to get that sooner rather than later.
yeah. I think in 10 months' time, having 1,000 points, 1,500 points box
Mm,
starter army for
mm.
legions would be a really good idea. I think for heresy, I think we're going to see Mark IV this year, and I wouldn't be opposed if it came out in the same way the Mark IIIs did.
Do you think we'll see
But
Mark IV before Mark V?
yeah,
Or Mark II, for that matter?
yeah, big time, because Mark
Mm,
IV's already there.
mm,
I think you replace the stuff before you add in different scale new
mm,
stuff.
mm,
I think Mark II would require a different build process potentially as well
mm.
for plastics. So yeah, I think Mark IV. There was some chat that it's seen something as well in Mark
Mm.
IV that was slightly bigger. Can't remember where that was now, but I
One of
think yeah,
one of the resin models came in a Mark IV and sort of lent itself to that.
yeah,
It was
I
the
think,
Thousand Sun was one of those.
yeah, I think there's a few kind of signs that it might
There
be
is.
coming. Just the fact they upgraded the threes before doing a new mark,
Agreed.
you
Yes.
upgrade the
Mm,
fours. Like you get everything to the same level, because otherwise you don't sell any fours. If you bring out
mm,
Mark V, Mark II in larger scale, and then you've got three armor marks in large scale and one in slightly smaller scale, you're not selling any Mark IVs anyway. So replace it.
I don't think there's anything out there that's sort of in resin that I would like to see moved over into plastic. I'm not as enthused because the things that are left are quite big. It's a shame that we didn't have things like javelins, some of the sort
Sabers,
of smaller scale
javelins,
things. So yeah, that sort of size of thing. The
yeah.
bigger stuff, I'm not. I mean, I wasn't. I think it's a positive move to move knights into plastic because
Mm.
it's easier to work with and makes them more accessible. I don't have a great rush. I mean, you hear people sort of joke about, "Oh, I want to see a plastic warhound."
No, no,
I just
not
don't
bothered.
really care. It's
No.
like it's such a at that size. Then it becomes such a centerpiece or such a significant investment in terms of how you play a game with it, or even as a modeling project, that's not as interesting to me as an infantry box that I'm going to buy multiples of. That's where I get more excited about those.
I think you've got stuff like the sabers that could easily go plastic. What I kind of hope for this year, though, is we get something new. When was the last new thing we had? The Kratos?
The one that sticks in Kratos probably would have been the new one, and the one that always jumps in my mind with that is the Arquiter.
Yeah,
that was
I mean in
unexpected.
plastic, but it's
Yeah,
Kratos.
fair enough. But
Kratos,
I mean
second
anything
edition.
new.
Kratos is the only thing in second edition that is new, really, apart from characters and
yeah.
So I would like that. Yeah, that's what I want.
I agree with your
Something
point. I thought it was a
new.
good one earlier about more factions or legions. Legions Imperialis. That would be great. I'd love to see a Mechanicum in that.
Yeah, you know what? The way they've done the allies as well. Like, I want everything in that. I want sisters. I want custodes. Like, you know, as that can only be taken as allies. I think would fit that really well. Legions that you can have an ally contingent and custodes and what have you. Like maybe they could be limited by the formations they take.
What becomes interesting then as well, because Necromunda as an example of how you support a game comes into play, because Necromunda is very good at releasing a single box that maybe got a frame or two in it that just adds into the game that you're not going to buy hundreds of, but yet they still seem to be able to afford to be able to release it and know that it's going to do reasonably well. Custodes would be a good example of that, or sisters. You could do a box of both of them, and it would be like dropping it. No, perhaps not like a kill team, but like dropping a little some of those slightly unusual things they do in Necromunda.
It'll be interesting to see how far we get through with the basic stuff first, but I think one of those. I mean, we still haven't seen any new sisters models for 28. Heresy.
No,
when we've got the units without models. Custodian's got a decently sized army. I think the way to introduce them is to have formations that custodians can only pick from, 2 or 3 formations with have a limited scope of what they're doing, so you can control those ally forces. So you're not facing, you know, a custodian's army with some legions, that kind of thing. Going forwards, one thing I want for LI once we get the basics out is I want to see the first like old school epic vehicles, like the bigger stuff.
And equally, that would be a good place to introduce new stuff we haven't seen before. Like when the Mastodon was introduced to me, like, okay, that's cool. That's what Epic used to do really well. They would be introducing stuff, and now we have that in the lore and 40k, and they've been around for decades.
Yeah,
Epic was very good for that.
What's the Imperialis? The
Capital Imperialis.
That kind of all that funky stuff, which can be done in the right way and still look really cool. I think I don't think we'll get like Legion specific stuff this year, to be honest. But I want to see.
There's too much of a range to. Legion specific. Sorry, I see what you mean. Yes.
Yeah.
No, I agree. We'll be a way off before that. I think if they even do it, I'm not even sure they will.
I really hope they do. I want to see like little Guilliman.
Primarchs, yes, but I'm not sure we'll necessarily see Legion specific infantry. I'm not sure you'll see.
No. I don't think there'll be
Phoenix Terminators, for example.
No, but there could easily be Dominators. Well, I suppose they'd come with the Mechanicum anyway. So, yeah. I don't think there needs to be. I think you could have Legion-specific rules for Fulmentaris and have Terminators.
Yes, I think you could do that. Yes, I think you could do that, but I don't think you'd have individual models.
Pack, you know, the kind of thing. Whether we would or not, wild off anyway.
Resin?
Resin for Pires. I'd say the bigger stuff would be the resin anyway.
I just wonder what Primarchs will be.
Oh,
I could see Primarchs. Primarchs, I can't imagine them. Unless you do a box of all 18, which would be hilarious.
Well, that's what potentially, loyalist and traitor.
Yeah.
Or they, I don't know how they'd do it. But either way, I want to see it. I don't know that it will happen. Cool. I want to see a second edition of Titanic. This is my wish rather than my expectation. Is a Daemons Titanicus tidied up edition. Because I don't think the game needs much, but I think it needs that little bit of love. There's quite a few questions on the FAQ as well. And I think it needs point changes in the weaponry, a couple of point changes on the Titans. Some of the Legio rules just need to be tweaked.
This feels like the more recent iteration of Blood Bowl, where you don't really change very much.
Yeah.
But it just smartens it up and presents it in a contemporary package. I think the game works really well. It's still it's probably the game I enjoy playing the most, because of how it plays and how cinematic it is, and the models are amazing.
I think Blood
But I
Bowl's a
agree
good
with you. I'd
shout.
love to see it.
They're both games that are so well set up there are very few issues around the core mechanics of any of those
completely.
games. The issues come with the edge cases, the points a little bit, and maybe like I was listening to a Blood Bowl podcast today, like wildly inaccurate throwing, the way star players are utilized in so many different options, like change the way that works because you're having to deal with so much design space when you say when you say it's an undead force, undead character, you've got to think about a number of options that they fit in with. Same for AT. Like when you bring out a weapon, you have to think about so many different mana pools, legion rules, all that stuff. That there's going to be the odd thing. Like as I say, I think stuff charging turn 1 is probably too much. I think knights could be looked at. I think weapon points can be looked at, and some of the mana pools aren't great. The Warbringer's not great, but won't take much to be brought in line. I don't think any of those are major issue changes. You just need to adapt a few rules, change a few things, and bring them into play.
I would be for
I think it would
Legions
breathe a lot of life
Imperialis.
into AT
For
as
Legions
well.
Imperialis, I'd be very excited, but for a Titanicus, I would be trepidatious if they released an Imperator.
The thing is, right? I think it's going to come now at some point.
I think it
I
will.
think it was
Yeah, I
always
think
going
it
to
will.
come to a point because someone will go, why not? If you can have a Warlord in 28 mil, why not do a resin Imperator? I just don't like how many points is a Warbringer, War Master in
Warmaster's
18?
750.
750, right? So an Imperator's going to have to be 1500 minimum, yeah, like minimum. And
But I
at
think
that point,
it
at that
works.
point, you're only ever playing it. It's like having a Warlord in 28 mil. You're only ever playing specific games with it. So it doesn't bother me if it's there because I'm never going to play that kind of game because I don't enjoy those kind of games. So whatever.
Perhaps then this is where it's the contradiction to what I said earlier about a plastic warhound or something similar. The reason it is a mixture of both nostalgia and it being a modelling project. Because I agree with you. I think in Titanicus as a game, I just don't think it works. But I would definitely want to have one to use. Yeah. I mean, they dominated in old school. They dominated in old school Epic. Yeah. They were the thing, but I think that could work in Epic because you just fundamentally change the way the game plays, much like they're doing with the Great Slaughter, which was a real surprise to me that they're putting in that game mode where you need 2 6,000 point forces, but they're just Titans. You could do something similar where it's the whole challenge is taking on an Imperator.
Warlord 600 points in Legion Imperial, 600-ish points. So 2,000 points of Imperator. Cool. Play in a 4,000 point game, you probably actually lose because there's only so many guns you can fire.
There's there's going to be more efficient choices, but
and there's going to be cover.
It's just the type of game that I think you want to have, and I would just be excited I could imagine how they would release it, and I'd be excited about it
Yeah,
in a way that I haven't been for the 28 mil
sure.
equivalent, like you say, like a Warlord or a Reaver or something similar.
Cool. Right, one last thing for expectations. What Primarch are we going to get? Are we going to get one?
I think we will.
So do I, because of
I'd
digital sculpt.
really like it. I'd really like it to be Jagatai. I don't think it will be. I think it's not going to be Angron, is it?
Why
It's
not?
not going to be Mortarion
Why not?
because we've had
They work
because
differently.
we've had the plastic ones. Because
Doesn't
we've had
matter.
the 40k
I
one.
don't think
No,
it
I know it
matters.
doesn't. I know it. I know it doesn't. And obviously,
I
there's a
really don't
suggestion
think
that
it
we're going
matters
to have
at all.
Fulgrim on, because it's a real surprise. That Fulgrim was such a surprise. That's the thing. I just didn't think we'd see
I
that.
mean, Lorgar's the one that we thought, most of us thought we were going to get because he's got rules.
Mm,
But we've got
mm,
two. I suppose it might just come down to whatever. I mean, I don't know the process at the moment. I don't know if it's just Sam designing them,
mm.
in which case it might come down to what he has an idea for. I think Lorgar makes sense rules wise. I think updating Mortarion, Angron,
Early doors ones, yeah.
yeah. Well, no, not Ferris. He's amazing, the best. Um, but yeah, some of the ones who are, more decisive
Mm.
could be interesting. Uh, and yes, Dan, we will talk about maybe next episode. We had some questions and Primarchs and how we look at them.
I
I
was
think
going to
we'll
say
push
that
to
that
next show.
touches. I was going to say we'll have to cover those in detail because I could
I
see
mean,
those
because
leading to
otherwise, here we go.
hefty conversations.
Yeah,
But
this is just a chilled out
that'll
chat.
segue this nicely into into the next episode.
Indeed, it
So,
would. So
how would
yeah,
you do Ferris? Mm.
I'm gonna say Lorgar. I'm gonna say it anyway.
I'm going to say Jagatai, but I think it's unlikely.
Cool. No worries. Have you got any? Are you setting any personal goals for the year? Are you setting any expectations for yourself? Or
Two,
win
two,
Beachhead, obviously.
two, 2,000 point win beaches. If I can come away with anything from there, that would be insane. And because having been surprised with coming
I
away with
have got a
those
bad back. I can't
things.
carry you the whole event.
We are, yeah. I think knowing the caliber of player there, I think the people we're not going to be coming in the. Speaking solely for myself, I'm not going to be coming in the generalship rankings. I don't think.
We're gonna have
But you
fun.
never know with someone else. And I also there's an encouragement there to those with the greatest theme. I just don't think we've got the time
No,
to put into. I don't. We would have needed to
no.
start 6 months ago into creating our costumes and cosplay and banner bearers and
We
similar
can
that we
go
would
as
have
the middle-aged
ideally
white
wanted to
men. It's fine.
do. Nailed it. um, 2,000 point imperialist armies by the end of the
Cool.
year would be nice.
You're just measured gold.
Very measured. Ideally, the problem is it very quickly snowballs, and like actually, I'd quite like to make sure I've got some heresy
Yeah,
forces put together as well. But yeah, let's be realistic.
cool. So I've had a weird one, and I went the other way, and I sat down and I wrote down kind of what I want for all the different systems I play, and like,
Mm,
I've got multiple armies for different systems and everything else, and I had this huge list, and I actually cut it down from like. There's no Cities of
mm,
Sigmar on this list, right? But my initial thing was aim so big, right? Just aim for everything, and I'm not going to achieve it, and that's fine.
mm,
But aim for it, like just write it all
mm,
down. Like, I'd
mm.
love to get this done. And it wasn't until Rob Ing, bless him, went, "You've just written down 11,000 points of various armies, excluding the stuff that I haven't written points down for." So he's like 1K a month, and all that extra stuff in the last month, and it's like, okay, you're right, that is ridiculous. But I actually feel really happy that I've already failed it. I'm not going to achieve it. So if I'm struggling with something, I'm not going to feel bad, but I'm not going to check it out because pressure's off.
Mm.
But I have
Mm.
got like my 30K corn demons. I want to finish them, and I've just remembered actually that I've got like cavalry and stuff to do. So that's not going to happen. I'm not going to finish that, but I do want to rebase them and magnetize their bases.
But what this
That's
does do
achievable.
is it gives. I think this is essentially it's a plan. The plan doesn't have to be achieved in a set period of
No,
time. And what I think that helps do, and I agree with this wholeheartedly, is it helps focus and give direction to what you are doing. Now, you may not need to, some people would say, well, I need to have completion to have a sense of satisfaction. Well, not necessarily.
no.
You could just enjoy
Focus
working on it.
can be a
Exactly.
yeah.
Just
So
having goals to work towards, it doesn't mean you have to do them in a set period of time.
no, and they also dictated and influenced by what I'm doing. So I've got a 1 day event in Crawley at the end of the month, and it's a narrative event, but I don't think it's going to be very narrative, and it doesn't feel narrative, and the pack's not narrative. It's pretty much there's a line in it that says this is a narrative event compared to my tournaments that I hold, so please bear that in mind, and that's it, basically. And I'm like, I don't know how many people are going to go narrative to it, and I'm bringing corn demons, so I'm already at a disadvantage. So I'm going to bring what I can in a 2,000 point corn demon list, which is 2 sovereigns, and I'm not taking the Lord of War, but I'll take the heavy beast. So I need to get some swarms painted for that, and then so that needs to be done. I'm going to leave the basing and the rebasing and magnetizing till after that, but the swarms need to be painted for that event in February. Going to Beachhead, and I either need to get my Titans painted or borrow Titans. So if I
Mm,
decide to go for my Titans, depending on what I pick for weapon choices, that might be needed to be, then that becomes that focus.
mm,
In June, I've got a 40K event, a 30K event in Eastbourne, and in September, I've got a big 30K event in Northamptonshire. So I need the armies painted for those. So okay, cool. So I need to do that. So they're all fit in with that, that kind of aspect of it.
mm,
I want
mm,
legions. People at the club want to play legions, so I need legions at least. The problem with legions is you're better off painting it before you build it. So that
mm,
kind of drives that a little bit. The old world I can build and paint as I go. That kind of thing. So what I've got is finish my 30K corn demons. So it's not going to happen, but rebase and magnetize that. I want that to happen. I want 3,500 points of 30K route plus allies.
mm,
Now I've got knights, I've got custodies, I've got sisters of silence, I've got some other bits. So actually, if I take a big ally force, that can be 2K of route.
mm, mm.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, why not have that as a thing? I'm gonna go for that. Complete my gargants for Age of Sigmar. Well, I've got 5 gargants at the moment, built, painted, 5 mega gargants. I've got 9 baby gargants, which most of them are built. I think I can do that. Like that can be
So
a
what you're doing here is you've set the goal, and now you're coming up with solutions of how to achieve the goal.
yeah. I
Which I
think
think
so.
is this is the point. It's creating focus. It's creating
Hmm.
drive because you've got those goals. It doesn't mean you have to achieve them in the next 12 months or whatever. You may prioritize certain things over others, which is also what you're doing. You'll say which ones are these more important. Those are going to be the ones that are going to be driven, or which ones do I need for an event? I think is a perfectly reasonable way of tackling a project, frankly.
And also, it's not 11K of doing all this because my 2.5K force for AT, some of it's built, some of it's painted.
Mm,
But
mm,
I want a 2.5K force. I've got knight that can include knights. And do you know what my 3K of Legions Imperialis can also include? Titans and knights. So
mm,
my 30% of that army, my 900 points of that could be Titans and knights.
mm.
So actually, maybe I only have to paint 2.1K of Legions Imperialis, and actually that seems like manageable. Like particularly with the thing. I need a 2k army for the old world. I'm assuming it'll be 2k points, and that needs to be built because we want to play at the club. So whether it's painted or not, I need to get it built. Print and start painting a Warmaster army. Well, I'm not printing it, so that's no effort on me whatsoever. Get enough terrain to play games at home. I can purchase that. Doesn't again? It'll be either 3D printed or purchased. I don't. Painting terrain's always a bit of a killer for me. Paint one kill team and one Blood Bowl team. Like that. They're almost my. Oh, I don't want to work on a big army kind of thing. Let's start on a Blood Bowl team. That
I did
kind of
last
thing.
year because it was a couple of friends' 40th birthdays where we were visiting Nottingham as part of that. I put a kill team together for that. That was an incentive to build and paint one. Great.
And that's the other thing with something like Kill Team Blood Bowl. I think I might put Underworlds in there as well. Is those are small games that can be carried really easily. If I go to Adepticon in 2025, which I want to do, I'm past trying to take a big army. I just won't do it.
Yeah,
I will
taking that on a flight is never a barrel of laughs.
It's a pain, especially with resin and things like that. So maybe I'll work out a way to do Legions Imperialis in that respect, or maybe I just take Blood Bowl like I did this year. Did Blood Bowl sevens, and I borrowed an army for Age of Sigmar. I could take a kill team. I could play kill team over there. I could do the little things, and their palette cleansers and underworlds will fit really easily in that kind of thing as well. So yeah, although what I've written is, and amongst that, I do want to start my Cities of Sigmar army. Because I'm that kind of guy anyway, I will do that anyway, and I will have 100 projects going. So build that into my expectations.
Yeah, I don't think that's something to be criticised. It's a way of enjoying your hobby. I'm similar. I will move between projects endlessly.
I had a couple of friends, and they annoyed me a little bit because someone was like, "This is 100% unachievable," and I'm like, "Well, that's what I wrote at the start. When I fail, I'm failing high. I know it's unachievable, but who cares?" Like,
It's
I set myself.
the nature of the thing is not to be achievable necessarily.
If I say I set that goal to paint all my 30k demons and rebase them all and magnetize bases, and I get a third of the way through the year and I've done a lot of it, and then I'm like, oh, I'm really distracted by this, go and paint that, and then I fall out of love of painting the corn demons. Do I screw myself over because it's sitting there looking at me, or do I just go, oh, cool, okay, right, yeah, I've done enough on that one. Maybe I'll finish it, maybe I won't, but I'm working towards another goal by doing it. What the good thing about this is, when I pick up another project, it's in my goals. So I don't feel like I'm wasting that time. I feel like it's going towards a different goal. And this is the way my brain works. Other people's brain works completely different. And that's fine. That's cool. But I
I
also
don't know about
play all these
completely
games.
different. I just think it's just about having a discussion. If some people are adamant that a list like this has to be achievable, well, does it? It's defining what that list is about and what the purpose of that list is. That list is setting a series of much longer term goals, and I think that's perfectly valid.
Yeah. Someone did say you forgot to put 5,000 points of Plastic Solar Auxilia. And I'm like, no, I've already got a terrible, terrible heresy army in demons. So I'm fine on that front. But yeah, I mean, I did have someone say you'll be high regardless. Yeah, I will. Like if I got a half of this done, I'd have the most productive hobby year I've ever had. Simple as that. And having this, I think having it in this style will change my mindset as well.
Yeah, I think it's no. Yeah, I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think it's quite a good way of doing it, and if that extends into next year and the year after, that's fine. And as long as it's enjoyable, that's the main thing. I mean, just saying,
Yeah, I mean,
well, I've achieved this, it turns it into, well, it's not a job. You're not doing this to get through a slog or anything. You're supposed to be doing it to enjoy it.
I think my key will be when the new stuff comes out this year that I haven't thought about, is fitting it into one of these things, not getting completely distracted by the new shiny, which I'm getting better at, but we shall see. That'll be the real task, I think. But anyway, we'll leave that. It's a real rambly
I think
episode.
that's a good. Well, I think that's a good
Nothing
set
wrong
of
with it.
points there to draw to look back and forward simultaneously.
Yeah, we got we got Dan's questions to deal with next month. There'll be other
Yes.
stuff, I'm sure. We'll have a plan. We'll have to have a little chat about what we're going to do. If you've got ideas, please let us know.
Or any questions, because if we're
Or any
tackling
questions.
Dan's questions, we could tackle a whole
We
bunch of
could
others
do,
at the same
yeah.
time.
We'll have to have a little think.
Any
Awesome.
heresy-based questions, or any thoughts on, or disagreements with, or with what we've said on highlights and lowlights.
Absolutely. Awesome.
Good to talk
Cheers,
to you,
man.
buddy. As always,
Cheers.
speak soon.
Cheers. Well, you've made it to the end of another episode of the Imperial Truth podcast. It's taken a little while to get this one out, from recording to editing. So there are some things we talked about that have since come out. We're going to worry about all of that next episode. I've put up a post on the socials, so on Instagram at Child of Fang, on Twitter Imperial_Truth, on Facebook, search for the Imperial Truth. On the page, that is, put up a request for questions. Next episode we will go over some listener questions. This is the Imperial Truth. We're we've had some questions we're definitely not going to answer already. It is me and Howard. We are less fun than some other podcasts, so that's your pre-warning on that one. But yeah, feel free to send questions in for that. If you have any comments, any tips, any requests going forwards, Greg at theimperialtruth.com. If you want to send your questions in via that email as well, you can certainly do that. So yeah, wonderful on that one. Looking forward to a really jam-packed 2024. Hopefully get into some events. Hopefully GW step up what they're doing from their end of things, and we get a bit more stock and all that kind of jazz as well. Some cool new heresy toys, all that usual stuff. I have got a few events planned. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit in the future. So we got Beachhead coming up. Both Howard and I are going to be out with Ant playing AT, but we'll walk around that event for sure. I know people involved in other game systems down there, so that should be good fun. I'm at a one-day event in Crawley on the 28th, I think. So we got that. I'm sure we'll touch on that next episode as well, following up, because I'll be using my demons if I can get the last few painted. But I think that is probably about it. I'm sure there was something else I meant to talk about, but if I've forgotten it, I've forgotten it. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. So yeah, I'll do a quick shout out for, we have merchandise. You can find the link in the show notes for that, and on Twitter I've got a link a link tree which I need to make sure is available on the other socials. So if you ever need to look anything up, you can use the link tree. It was probably there. If not, you can contact us and we can work things out. But there's a merch store for t-shirts and very, very white jumpers, which is cool. There's some other good stuff on there as well. It doesn't have to be white, but the white hoodie is very, very white. We've got the Patreon if you want to support the show in any way, shape, or form. And for all those who've been Patreon supporters, thank you very much. Everything stays free of charge on the show. There's it literally, I'm using it as a tip jar. I'm not using it to create content, put anything behind a paywall, anything like that. You know what it's like with our recording schedules. So promising any more could get us in trouble as well. So we don't do that. Yeah, I think that's probably about it. I suspect, hopefully, next recording we might even be able to talk about the End and the Death, Volume 3, depending on how much time we've each had to read it / listen to it as well. But that's going to be an exciting one on Saturday. But I will leave that here, and we'll come back next show and we'll talk your ear off some more. So once more, you have been listening to The Imperial Truth.